Welcome back, podcast Dialog choices. We got them. We make hundreds of choices every week. Look at us
And
go.
all of them are bad.
We don't even
all of them.
I never have a plan. We just go.
We are hard mode renegade here.
Hard mode renegade.
When you die in hard
evil,
mode,
just
you get
renegade.
What? Yeah. So do we have questions, or do we have anything ready for?
Do people remember we exist?
So I watched Fear the Walking Dead.
I guess not.
partly because I was writing a. I don't think we had any. I think our last question might have been from November.
Damn.
Oh.
I could double check that at some point, but I've been toying with some Walking Dead scripts, so I was trying to get caught up on the various shows. So I got caught up on the first half of the final season, following up on the previous shit, and then I watched the first half of the new season of Fear the Walking Dead, which is a different show making other uniquely bad choices. Actually, the final season so far of actual Walking Dead is surprisingly good. Like, it's actually really hitting its stride with all of its most boring characters gone. Like all of the most prominent actors have left the show, leaving all of the. It's like whoops, all Lancers. Like, all the characters that are supposed to be the foils to the main characters are now the main characters of the story because all the main characters left. And it's just it actually makes the cast way more compelling as a result because there's no Gokus. And so that's interesting. But Fear the Walking Dead is the opposite problem, where it's all Gokus. Everyone sucks. Everyone's so fucking boring. It's just everyone feels like a boring protagonist person that's not allowed to have flaws, basically. And then they straight up went like, "Hey, what if Fallout?" Because like, this takes place far enough away from the main story. We could set off on Nuke and pretend that no one would notice in the location of the main story. So it's just now a post-apocalyptic nuclear wasteland that also has zombies, to the point where it literally will be like, wow, look, it's like a billboard of a smiling family, but it's under the rubble. Like, look at this juxtaposition. No one's ever come up with this before.
It's
doing that kind of shit.
How does radiation work on zombies?
It doesn't.
Doesn't radiation kill cells?
They just become radiation carriers in addition to being zombie carriers. So now they're dangerous to be around at all.
Yeah, but now it's pretty easy to check for them. Just have a Geiger counter on you at all times, and now you know when they're there. That's pretty dumb.
It's been an experience.
Small brain move from the zombies. This isn't going to pan out at all.
I think maybe the Geiger counter would be going off all the time.
Well, I mean, if you're in the middle of a wasteland, yeah. But if you're just like hanging out on the outskirts, if you suddenly start hearing the Geiger counter go off, you're like, that's kind of weird. We're kind of away from the radiation. What could be possibly carrying such a high dosage?
Yeah. And I've complained before that the show got like decapitated right when it was at its peak. Like, they just cut the head right off the chicken and just tried to summon viewers by putting Morgan on the show. So Season 3 was the best season of Fear the Walking Dead, and maybe the best season of all of Walking Dead, period, as a universe. Like, it's probably the best season of TV that they've made ever. It's definitely competition, at least. And then they're like, well, the viewership's bad. We're going to just fucking rip Morgan out of the main show and put him in the side show as the protagonist. And we're literally going to kill off half the main characters in a flashback. Like, that kind of shit is what they pulled. Where the season introduces Morgan immediately, so you're stuck having a time skip that enables that to even be possible, because normal Walking Dead not only is more seasons deep, but it started later in the timeline and also has had time skips already. So the Fear the Walking Dead that was still taking place early in the apocalypse had to time skip years into the future and just skip straight to showing Morgan, and then show in a series of flashbacks what happened to multiple of the missing characters that died off camera at that point. And it's like, Jesus fucking Christ. And then of the remaining surviving characters that were the most interesting parts of Fear the Walking Dead that still survived, two of them by the current season are completely unrecognizable, and the other one is held back as a teaser bait thing for the entire first half of the season, where only in the mid-season finale does she even show up. Everyone's just asking where she is all season, and it's like, don't fucking, god damn it. So that means you have to spend the entire season with pretty much with just Morgan and some of the other really boring characters that they brought over, including Dwight and other characters, and it's just like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you doing this to us? And it was basically torture.
we're gonna need to detox you from Walking Dead. You need to,
more. Next I have to watch Walking Dead World Beyond.
No.
I have to
what does that mean?
Is this
We're gonna go to space?
No, it's because at the end of Walking Dead they introduced the Commonwealth. Oh shit, that's different people. Oh fuck, World Beyond's a different group from the Commonwealth, isn't it? Yeah. Because in Fear the Walking Dead, they include people. There's a secret civilization somewhere that you only meet via a lesbian helicopter pilot, but it's like some sort of super secrety someone somewhere that wears like these black costumes that have these weird pleats on them, and if you can't know anything about them or they'll kill you or something. I guess I think World Beyond takes place inside of their walls, and like that's an interesting premise to set up. Like, okay, let's find out what's going on in one of these like really secure, more like neoliberal, modern sort of fucked up. Like, what if the society didn't collapse that much? So it's doing like the Commonwealth kind of shit, but you have to deal with the. No, I think it takes place in the Commonwealth. I think it just also features the helicopter people. I need to watch more of it. I only watched a half of one episode and I hated it. The problem is that you have to deal with two young girls are the protagonists. They're like teenagers, and they're just fucking Ambien. They are the most boring characters ever for a pilot of a show, and you're just stuck with them. And I did not make it through the first episode, and so that'll be an experience to try to get through.
It does sound like you need a detox.
I've been watching JoJo's.
We can help you, Keith. We can tell you about other shows that don't have
the
zombies.
Hamon part of JoJo's.
This is going to be the timeline for the Walking Dead series in like
It's
5
the Fate
years.
Stay Night Walking Dead. It just has a Weezer Blue album in the middle of it. Yeah, this is a prank. I see it. Okay.
But like that's basically what you're
It just
describing at
reaches
this point.
JoJo's in Dark Souls 3.
Yeah.
If Tony Hawk survives, it becomes Team Fortress 2. But, this.
I mean, I can believe in that. That sounds plausible to me.
Like it's honestly, it's a lot more sensical. Like that timeline makes more sense than the actual timeline for the Fate series.
I mean, I could believe it. I've heard things. I think no, I haven't heard anything. It just sounds like a lot. What I've heard is I've just seen a series of Fate titles, and I'm like, that's enough for me. I've just seen the titles of too many Fate things, and I'm like, that's too much titles. What are they even doing with those titles? How about numbers?
It's better than it's better than the Monogatari franchise, which is like, hey, do you want to watch multiple episodes from multiple seasons in different orders? Because that's the way you're supposed to canonically watch them to understand what the plot of the story is. Otherwise,
and half the timeline is not even out yet.
No, unfortunately, half
Some
of
of
the timeline isn't published yet because it hasn't been released.
Has it been at least written, or do we have things in the future?
Yeah, so you can. So I believe it's I think it's either a light novel or a manga. I want to say it's a light novel. It's a light novel series. So I think the light novel is done, but it's the anime that isn't. So like in order to try and put it like you can't watch this show basically. You can, and people will argue that like it doesn't matter, but it fucking does matter because you'll watch some episodes and be like, wow, cool. I really love being the sideline to an in-joke that I'll never know because it needs to come out like 10 years ago. Oops,
But it's just
okay.
all you have to do is look up a wiki article, and you have all the details about.
But like, then why bother? Just read the fucking light novel. Why are you even like watching the anime? Then it's such a dumb. I don't know. It's fine. People like watching people lick each other's feet or something, but it's still like such a weird. I don't know. I'll never understand stuff like Fate or Index or Magic or like Railgun or Railgun or this. Like these timelines that are so big, so intricate, where it's like, oh, by the way, there's like 15 different series, and like one of them is kind of just silly, but the rest are really important. And you need to take notes, because if you don't take notes, you're not going to understand what this new series is about, which is like relevant, like referencing 4 different series at the same time. And you're like, no, I'm done. I give up. I'm over it. I don't care anymore. Like, I don't know, man. I don't care. I tried my best. I tried getting into like every single one of these series, and I just had to stop. Because like at some point you realize that there is like there'll be this point where you think you've done it. You're like, okay, thank God, I've watched everything. I'm right. And you'll watch something and someone goes, yeah, remember that time? Like, I don't fucking remember that time. God damn it, what did I miss? And you have to like go back in the timeline, and you're like panicking, and you're flipping through all this shit, and you're like, oh fuck, I didn't read the light novel from 2005 where this one guy hired another guy to write the thing. Shit. Like,
Andrew, we can detox you from this. We can help you.
It's not the light novel.
Yeah, it's so awful. There was like, I remember watching something in Index, and a guy appears, and he's like, yeah, I'm here to finish what I started. I was like, who the fuck is this guy? What did he start? When did he start this shit? And I'm like looking through the timelines, like, oh yeah, there was a one-off spin-off series that started by one of the assistant artists from the it's like one of the
fight.
One of the assistant artists from the original series like showed up and made his own thing, which became canon. I was like, what the fuck? No, I'm not gonna do this. Like, I gotta go dumpster dive to find this thing just to read like a 12 or an 18-page manga, so I know like why this buff dude wants to beat the shit out of the main character. I'm over it. I don't care. Let me guess. Main character beats his ass. He does. All right, let's move on now. Like, I don't care anymore. Like, it's ridiculous. It's like, imagine if every single villain in Dragon Ball Z had its own series that you had to go read before you watched Dragon Ball Z. You would not fucking do it. You would not give a shit. You'd be like, I don't care what.
Yeah.
You'd be like, I don't care what Cell's here for.
Someone
I want to watch
would.
his ass get beat. Like, some people would, yeah, absolutely. But I'm saying, like, the average person, they would give up. They'd be like, look, I'm here for one thing, and that's to see Goku turn his hair blonde and beat the shit out of some alien. That's all I'm here for. Like, I don't need whatever this is, like some dramatic backstory to give some kind of weighted reasoning for why this character is doing something, and then you look at the character and it's like, I'm gonna turn into the size of an elephant and blow up your planet. I'm like, I don't fucking get the fuck out of here, Cell. Get out. I'm done. Teleport to Kami's place. Goodbye. Like, over it. I don't need this shit anymore. It's just like, it's so dumb. And like, I get it, you know, anime wants to be, sometimes it wants to be a little bit too much. Like, everything wants to be Harry Potter, but with like Harry Potter squared. Like, if you
999, basically.
Yeah, you want to have this like
it's the same issue.
You want to have this intricate world, this world that's so deep and mysterious and full of lore and interesting characters and all this stuff. But like, at the end of the day, you need to like take a moment, sit down, look at your world and go, do I really give a fuck about the guy who served lunch to the lady at school one time, who witnessed an event, who then later uses that event witnessed to change their entire life story and thus come back 16 seasons later to try and compel the main character to not give in to darkness? No, I fucking don't. If you do that again, I'll cut your hands off. Don't fucking do that. Like, it's
something.
It is so
that's
stupid.
Something that a Song of Ice and Fire does really well. The books. No, the
that's
Game of
why
Thrones,
I could never do Game of Thrones. It was like, I tried reading it. I was like, okay, what? You need to finish that person's story. Like, you have to finish. You can't just walk away from that. And it's like,
you don't think it's done well.
It just jumps between people.
Yeah, it just walks away from the story. You're like, okay, that's
but
cool.
That's not what it does, though. That's not the real magic. The real magic is that even in the stories that it does tell, the way it does, it's jumping between point of view characters.
Well,
but even then, like,
story isn't done, so
the real magic is you're never getting an ending. That's the magic.
Because he keeps going off to write other things.
Elden Ring.
I can't imagine why.
Yeah, Elden Ring and a prequel book. He made like a Targaryen book, which I think is what the other HBO show is adapting now. which
Yeah,
I have heard
that's
zero
ballsy.
people be excited about because the ending of Game of Thrones was so bad that the
Yeah,
idea of a
exactly.
cinematic universe is just gone.
Exactly. Why
Like,
would
we cared
anyone
about
be
these
excited?
characters, and you stabbed us for caring about them. So why do we care about new characters? You didn't think about this very much.
HBO's like, wait a second, we can salvage this. Hold on.
You can't.
Nah, it's just a cash grab.
You very much can't.
It's just a cash grab. If they don't sell it, nobody loses money.
Yeah, like I don't have a problem with really deep story worlds. I like the idea of intricate, well thought out worlds and characters in those worlds. But I think there comes a limit to when it's not when things are happening in the story that are due in part to very small and missable moments in an otherwise really big like bombastic story. It's really hard to care about that stuff. Like it's hard to care about little things like, oh, did you notice the troll sitting in the corner of this one frame of a movie? He's gonna be here and he's a main character. And you're like, I didn't notice him. And I don't really like the
Star Wars effect of having to turn every single random toy selling alien they made has to like have a complex lore and its own Disney Plus show now.
Yeah. Like it's like there's something really genius about the fact that you have like that's why I like Baby Yoda, because it's probably not even what it's called. Like it's just someone came up with a creature and like that was probably going to be a huge plot point revealing what like the name of this thing is or whatever. But the entire internet was like, oh look, it's a Baby Yoda, it's cute, okay, pet its head. And then like everyone else just kind of, that's it, that they just agreed that's what it was called. And now it's called that forever. And you can't change that. Like you can come back and be like, well actually the Yoda race is called the blah blah blahs, and people be like, that's cool, but what about Baby Yoda? Like Baby Yoda's the
Wasn't
cute
female Yoda called Yordle?
Yeah, or something like that. It was stupid. But like right now, canonically speaking,
just Yoda with a wig next to Yoda on the council.
Canonically speaking, Yoda's race is called Yoda. Like,
is it really?
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah.
It's really funny.
Why does Star Wars?
Why does Star Wars?
Apparently, why does Star Wars indeed?
No, that's D&D. Okay, so fans call it tridactyls, which sounds like a fucking dinosaur, so no thanks.
What do you say to me?
Apparently that's
you can't just say words like that at me and expect me to just go with it.
Apparently that is what fans call it. They call it tridactyl.
This is big. This is big. There's a Wikipedia page about water energy.
Yes, it is. But
that's from a game. That's from a game, isn't it?
But basically, Wikipedia just kind of like...
the actual Wikipedia has an entire page about water.
Yes,
water, and it has a second page because it has both a legacy page and it has a legends page and a canon modern page on water because they have to be described separately, like they're fucking like old timeline and new timeline Luke, but it's water.
It's
what are you doing to me, Wikipedia?
I think my favorite part is that like out of all the things, out of everything that George Lucas has done to be like kind of the worst storm of nature to the Star Wars universe as time went on,
George Lucas
he would literally not give a name to the Yoda race. Like he just would call them unknown. He just had no interest in like explaining it. And so people just like panic about this like most important character in the Star Wars canon not belonging anywhere. Like, who is he? Where does he come from? How do we like milk this franchise? Like, we need to create a whole race of these people.
From Cotton Eye Joe.
And like, the most people have got is just like, yeah, he's like the illegitimate son of Kermit and Miss Piggy. Is like all George Lucas has ever said. And you're like, I don't fucking. What do I do with this? Like. So Disney just like, we made a baby one and we're not going to call, like, maybe we're going to come up with a name, but now it's just Baby Yoda is the race. Like, I don't know. It's great. I love that. I love that because I would much prefer something so dumbly simple for something so inconsequential than something really, really over the top explained. Like calling Yoda's race Yoda is fine. I don't care. you meet like a total of 2 in the entire franchise, and
one
of them
including
is
the
just,
baby.
Yeah, and one of them is a Gen 10.
It was fine to just have Yoda and not even have more of them.
Yeah,
it's like
here's a baby one and here's a girl one, and it's like, all right, well, now you're making us ask questions.
Yeah, it's like the face of Bo in Doctor Who. It's like this important character for a little while, and then of course because it's Moffat, he decides to give it a backstory, but when it shows up, it's like this big thing.
That wasn't Moffat.
It wasn't? Oh.
No, that's Russell T Davies. That's season 1.
No. Oh, the backstory was Moffat though, right?
That was like the same season where it's like
was
just
it?
the
Okay,
one.
okay.
Unless unless there was more backstory. You find out like immediately that Jack is the face of Bo.
Oh, yeah, I'm misremembering it then.
He's got like immortality and keeps coming back because he's the unkillable character for a while.
Mm-hmm. Also,
then they meet the face of Bo, and like the episode where face of Bo is introduced, it's immediately revealed that it's Jack that episode.
Yeah.
And that raises questions. You're like, the fuck does that mean? And they don't answer them. At least not then.
That might
maybe
be
eventually.
What I'm remembering. Yeah.
Maybe it comes up more later, but at the time they don't tell you anything about how the fuck Jack is face of Bo.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what does that even mean? I don't know what that means.
It's a cool concept. It's like, look at this person. It is a face, and it is big.
It is a face.
I mean, it's better than like this stretched skin woman, I guess.
I love her.
What?
Moisturize me.
No.
What is that?
Moisturize me. Moisturize me.
Great. That's
it's like she's great. She's so good.
Where's that from?
That's
also from season 1. She's just a strip of woman. She's the last surviving human of all humans, and she's just a face stretched on some hooks, and she's just a film of flesh, and she keeps asking people to moisturize her. It's incredible. I fucking love it. It's such a nightmare.
I hate that. I hate it so much. It's so gross. Good. So fucking gross.
The first
how does that even fucking work? Like, she has moving.
Because it's Doctor Who and it's fun, and I missed that because I just finished watching the fucking New Year's special of Doctor Who, and it wasn't fun. I was really frustrated, and that was after the Flux, which was the worst season of Doctor Who I have ever seen. It is borderline unwatchable from front to back, except it has one decent episode with the Centaurans as episode 2. But it's just like they tried to have this massive Infinite Crisis, like fucking Marvel Comics situation, or DC or whatever. They're not distinguishable from each other. They both have the big reset crisis events, but one of them actually calls them that word, and one of them doesn't. And like, it's such a bad season because they're trying so hard to make every single thing play into all the other parts, but they're also trying to have each episode kind of be a set piece of like, here's the Angels one and here's the Centaurans one and so on. And it's just like an incoherent mess of like 500 characters. The entire first episode is a massive headache of an episode because it's just jumping between 75 different plot points to set up the sheer number of moving pieces they're trying to have for the season, to the point where almost nothing actually happens that episode because it's so busy setting up the season as a whole. But then the second episode is the Centaurans, which is specifically the thing they did not set up in any of that intro, from what I can remember, because they're so busy with all the other moving pieces, and the Centaurans are supposed to be a surprise. So it's like its own mess at that point, and I'm just, it's hard to coordinate how much of a mess the season was, because it would require me to like take notes, because like I would have to take notes to even tell you what was wrong with the season, because it was so hard to even process what each episode was even going for, that I genuinely can't repeat most of the story to you off the top of my head, because it was so incomprehensible by the end. And like, even when it's resolving everything, like almost nothing actually gets resolved, and there's massive hanging questions, and I'm pretty sure they destroyed the majority of the universe but don't really talk about it. And like, what was the motivation of most of the villains, and what were they going for? Why did that character exist? Why did that character exist? Did any of the things that happen at the end make any sense? Like, it's just a massive oh no season. And because they tried to do the entire season as one continuous storyline and did such a bad job, it means that you're just stuck with an entire season being just not fun to watch, and there's nothing to really like salvage from it at all. And it's like it's rough because this is it, I think, for her. Like, this is the end of this Doctor, and it's like there was 2 really badly managed seasons already where they just really poorly developed her at all at any point throughout the story so far, but also like had way too many characters, so they were also pretty poorly developed. And now they cut the characters down to fewer people, but they still can't seem to develop them. And then they wasted the whole final season on what was supposed to be the most hype storyline in the history of the show, and it fell flat on its face. And then it's just going to be like, unfortunately, the first female Doctor is just going to be like the most bad part of the show so far, basically. And it's not because of that. That's not the reason why it is.
Mission accomplished.
But that's what happened.
Nerds win this time.
I liked it. I liked her. At least I was like, or at least I was ready to like her. Like, I didn't have a problem with the casting or her acting or anything like that. And it was cool to see if the female Doctor and all that. But then literally just none of it's been handled well. I can't really describe her personality the way I can describe any of the other personalities. And there's like a really unshakable feeling that like, oh, it's still a show like being run by a dude. So unsurprisingly, all the most compelling storylines and all the most character development keep being given to whatever dude is on camera and not any of the female characters. Like the first 2 seasons, Graham had all the best lines and the most emotional storylines, and then they got rid of Graham, and now a new white guy comes in, and he very noticeably has like immediately like a lot of development, is a really compelling character. And Yaz, who they kept around for all 3 seasons, continues to get 0 development, while the Doctor herself is also really flat and boring. And it's like, it's the Doctor, the titular Doctor whomst is who. Doxter. How did you make the Doctor boring? What the fuck, guys?
I honestly, I don't know though. Are you being? I don't know. The Doctor isn't necessarily a very exciting character.
He can be pretty good.
Well, yeah, David Tennant was great.
Yeah,
but it's the portrayal rather than the writing. All 4 of the
new Doctors I love. They've all been really good. Christopher Eccleston had an incredible first season and then was gone immediately. But like, yeah, you have stuff like the Dalek episode that explores him specifically, and it's like still the best and maybe only good episode of Daleks in the entire new show, because they just need to stop coming back. They won't, because they're the most iconic villain. So fuck you. We're going to keep telling the same story over and over again, even though the whole point is that Doctor's not supposed to kill people. So it's kind of hard to resolve that conflict in an interesting way. And they almost never do. They just keep bringing back the Daleks over and over again, and it's always the worst episode of that particular part of the story, and I hate it.
They need to bring the Hypermen or whatever.
The Cybermen?
Cybermen, that's the one. Because the
Cybermen are pretty weak, but they're definitely better than Daleks. The Weeping Angels could have been cool, but really they are just another case of being like, we had a good idea, and instead of having more good ideas, we're going to keep reusing the old ideas.
Yeah, that's my issue.
There's a quote that really ages really poorly from Stephen Moffat, where he said, when you've written a good episode of Doctor Who when you're like, well, that's that feature film idea blown. Like the idea that they're writing an entire movie's worth of thing. And it's like, yeah, that'd be nice. That's definitely not what happens. You definitely just like, bring the angels back out. They'll do the thing. Oh man, don't blink. Here we go.
But I think I don't know if that's true though. Like, that's a narrow understanding of even Moffat's material, let alone certainly the first few seasons of Doctor Who from 2005 onwards. Because there's a lot of episodes that are they're not structured in the way a movie is. Like, in the sense that if you have an idea for a movie, you need to have the idea it's not just, what if cars were made of soup? No, it needs to have a beginning. You need to have a beginning and an end. But Doctor Who can definitely make an episode.
It used to be like, here's a wildly different premise, and we're just going to run with it from episode to episode. And that was like part of the fun. One of my favorite premises is the one that I'll never remember the name of, but it's like green waterfall, red something or whatever. And there's like the robots are like, this is a kindness. And it's like they go into these rooms and they find out accidentally, when it's too late, that this is a place where people were inflicted with this deadly illness, so they created like a time paradox thing where you could like
it's a
meet
library,
each other in these like meeting rooms. No, it's not Science of the Library, but that one's really good too.
No, Two Streams facility.
Two Streams facility, yeah, and they it's like they created a cool time paradox place where it's like you can like live out your life and still have your loved ones be in your life even though they don't have much time left, by having these two rooms that are out of sync with each other in time stream. So their relatively rapid descent into death will be drawn out over the course of like a longer portion of your life. So they essentially get to be around longer and see you age and all that in like a different way. And but they find out that after they've already entered in it, so they accidentally abandoned one of the companions in there, and she lived an entire life fending off these robots that are going crazy, trying to sedate her and ultimately kill her. And like they're trying to treat her but badly, and so like she's like this warrior woman that's like 60 now or something and lived this whole life, and there's this whole fucking conflict about like, oh well, now like you, their first instinct is to fix this, but if you fix this, you're essentially killing this person that you see in front of you to revert back to the one that you knew. And like, what is the morality of that kind of situation? Like, or like there's in like, I think like one of the like episodes, season 1 or 2, I think had like an entire episode that took place in a traffic jam. Like the entire episode was like in a space car traffic jam where the entire planet is in traffic all the time. And it's like, those are ideas and stuff. But now they're like, what if Weeping Angels, but like again? What if the Statue of Liberty was a weeping angel? I'm like, fuck you, stop. Like, you have like, this is like one of the highest budget things on all of British TV, and you can't like hire people that have ideas. Fucking Neil Gaiman was like, what if the TARDIS was actually got to be a woman for an episode? And suddenly it's like you're dealing with like, you're interrogating why she does what she does and why the TARDIS has been along with the Doctor in this entire storyline and developing the TARDIS as a character. There are people hungry to write Doctor Who stories, and you're like, but what if the Daleks were red and green and they're like Power Rangers, where they're like Skittles colored? You can sell more Dalek toys if they have colors. I'm like, fuck, I hate this.
I would love the idea of seeing Weeping Angels evolve. Like the idea that instead of, they're like, people are onto that blinking thing. Now we're going to move whenever people aren't breathing. And like the idea that every time you take a breath, they get closer. Yeah, you're just like,
oh, the opposite.
Like, yeah, because you would get scared. Like that's
they're
the thing. It's
powered
like
by CO2.
Yeah, like as
CO2.
as you're breathing out, they're getting closer to you. So you have to like hold your breath to stop them from getting to you.
Don't
like
breathe.
that sounds
Whatever
great.
you do, don't breathe.
Yeah, exactly. Like how do you tell people not
that's
to breathe?
That's a bad idea. That's exactly the kind of hack bullshit they would do. It's like, how do we do Weeping Angels again? Slight twist. Now it's breathing. And then it's like just fucking Doctor number 17 is on a VHS tape again. And they're like, don't breathe. Whatever you do, don't breathe. I'm Scottish this season or whatever.
I'm Scottish this season.
Oh, what if you have like a creature that feeds on weeping angels, but it only moves by CO2, so you have to breathe to get them faster to the weeping angels to eat them.
I mean, my favorite episode of all of Doctor Who is the one where there's just an invisible monster that makes people repeat what other people are saying. It's just a ship in a bottle episode called Midnight, and it's so good. They're just on a tour thing, and there's some kind of creature out there, and if you go out but they can't leave the tour thing because they'll die instantly in like that world out there. Like it's so just so massively toxic or hostile or whatever. And like their vehicle's broken down, they can't like get going. Like this thing is like, I think it's like sapping their power or something, and they can't move. And one of them just starts repeating what other people say, and like they'll just say whatever the other people are saying over and over again. But it keeps getting faster. It repeats faster and faster until it's talking at the same time, and it locks directly onto the Doctor specifically. And it starts saying everything he's saying at the same time until eventually he's the one repeating after the monster. And so they think that the monster has now possessed him. And so he's the one that is the threat. And they're going to like throw him out of the airlock and stuff. And it's this like terrifying thing where you see the Doctor, David Tennant, just completely powerless against whatever the fuck is happening here. And the what is it? There's like the cool. There's a really like kind of heartbreaking ending where the flight attendant, or the stewardess, sacrifices her life to resolve this because she's the only one that realizes what's really happening. And there's this heartbreaking line of like, did anyone even know her name? And it's like, Jesus Christ, it's a great episode of Doctor Who. Stop bringing the Daleks back. Fuck you.
I was gonna say that.
Exterminate. The only good thing about Daleks is they have good one-liners sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, Daleks are not fair. And like, that's it. That's all they're good for.
I was gonna mention my favorite line, but then you said that anybody know her name? Doctor Who does have a few lines like that where they just punch really hard all of a sudden.
So good.
But my favorite line is when David, I think it's the first Doctor of the new seasons, and Rose asks, because he has a northern accent, and Rose asks, if you're an alien, why do you sound northern? And he's like, my planet has a north.
Yeah, lots of planets have a north.
Or that's the one. I was like, that's brilliant. That's genius. I think that's in an episode where they're fighting mannequins.
Run for your life. That's the first episode of the entire show, I think.
Yeah. They're the fighting mannequins thing, and it's just
Eccleston's fantastic introduction and a pretty strong season. And I say that knowing that it's a season with fart monsters.
It's so silly all the time, and I love it.
From Roxicoricophalopatorius.
You don't. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the strength of Doctor Who, is that it doesn't have to be serious.
I named our Star Wars Old Republic guild after them.
Like, because the thing is, when you're you don't need to be self-serious when you're sure that what you have is good.
It's at its core,
so obvious.
Doctor Who is a sci-fi horror children's show.
Yeah, the horror
it is
in
an all ages goosebumpsy sci-fi show. So it's genuinely unnerving sometimes, but it's always going to be a family friendly like version of that. Mm-hmm. So it's always going to be goofy and just roll with it, and then you get surprised all the more when it's actually kind of terrifying.
Yeah. And I'll say this: everybody says stuff about the Christmas episode with the gas masks in the Blitz. I don't think that's particularly scary.
It's a hell of a visual. The way they just become these gas mask face thing, and it's one of the many creatures that end up. There's definitely a thing in Doctor Who where you have like a creature that mostly just says one line a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like that one is, "Are you my mummy?" And then was it Silence at the Library is, "Hey, who turned out the lights?" And
oh, that's great. Oh, that's fantastic.
Because they're skeletons that are just repeating their last thought before they died over and over again. And it's like, And then they're like, this is a kindness, is the two streams facility. That's really common.
Mm-hmm.
But usually it's all the more haunting because you're like, oh, fuck, something's wrong here.
The trope of the last moments of somebody's life being repeated by the perpetrator of the death of that person.
Yes.
It's definitely a trope, but it works so often and so well all the time.
No, it's my favorite part of Annihilation. And I made a whole video about that.
Mm-hmm. And then I had nightmares and couldn't sleep.
Fuck that bear.
Oh
my god.
It's so good. It's such a good bear. Oh my god.
It is. But
bear. It's so fucked. It's both terrifying without context, and then and then understanding what it is makes it so much worse.
But it's not just the visuals and the story. The cast itself amplifies how bad the bear is.
Yeah,
it's one of those rare cases in horror where it's more than the sum of its parts. It's like everybody else contributes.
I need to finish my script about the bear.
Wait, you wrote about the bear? You're going to write about the bear again?
Well, I was just writing about themes and stuff like that in my original video, but I have a whole thing to go into just about how efficient that scene is. Because it's not only is it the most memorable and interesting scene of the entire movie, and it's like what you go home ranting about, but also it's like incredibly efficient storytelling. Like the way that it is literally the climax of like 4 character story arcs simultaneously without being like, I'm going to now explain what it's doing. And like with how much like hack storytelling is basically like, I will now just explain to you what is happening next. And like it's like in like exposition and bad stuff. But like what's also bad is just having scenes that accomplish one thing. Where you want to, at your peak, you want to be like Edgar Wright and be doing accomplishing like 12 things at once with your hyper dense shit. And that's what's happening with the mimic bear so much, and it's just such a good scene for that reason. Like it's the most important. It's one of the most important scenes in the movie for basically every character in the entire movie except Ventress, which is really noticeable because Ventress basically doesn't appear on camera despite being there. Like you can just see her on the edge of the frame throughout the scene because she just doesn't matter emotionally to that scene, but every other character does, and you can tell the camera. You can tell from the camera's motions what's going on.
She's the one with the shotgun at the time.
Ventress is the one that is the leader of the mission.
And
right.
She
does. Yeah. She's the one that doesn't have any emotional stakes in the bear, whereas it affects every other character.
Do you think there's other animal creatures?
Mimics?
Yeah. Like, do you think there's like an alligator
in real life?
No, not in real life. Like in this
movie,
world,
in
that world. Yeah, like an Annihilation. Or there other...
yeah, probably.
Yeah, because it's all about the loss of self and all that.
God, that sounds amazing. There's just like some island of monsters yelling with human voices all the time. You're like, what is that sound in the distance? Oh, that's just Mimic Island. It's fine. They just all yell in human voices for some reason all the time.
For context, if people haven't caught up, I have a YouTube channel called Boring Keith where I make video essays, and that's where I did the big Annihilation thing. And I also got a Monster Hunter one, and I'm working on more, but I gotta ever have the confidence to finish anything.
If you haven't seen the Annihilation video from Keith, go and watch it. But also watch the one about that movie. What's that movie? Monster Hunter movie. The movie, I don't remember the name of the movie, but watch that one as well.
Those are the two big ones. The Zelda one I cranked out in one day. But it was just an existing rant that I had that was essentially coming up here and there during the various Zelda playthroughs, and I'm like, they immediately fucked up these HD remakes, didn't they? But it's really hard to commit to any script. I'm finding there's the drive to just sit there and just write continuously, but there's also the element of like doubting yourself, and also always feeling like you need to do more research or check more things before you can commit to anything, and whether or not you have the authority to say what you're saying with any certainty, and then also whether or not it's even worth saying, because the more you dive into the thing, the more you're like, am I just pointing out like a bunch of really obvious shit and none of this is worth discussing?
Do you not notice that in video essay channels though? Certainly, I mean, once you learn the gist or like the perspective of one particular YouTuber, you sort of can like, if you're in tune with their, especially media analysis, it's probably even more common than it is in like politics or social sciences or whatever. But in media analysis, if you know what kind of person and what kind of attitudes a certain critic is, and you see them talk about this whatever new movie it is or game, and you're kind of like, okay, let's do it, and you just sort of like, you already know what they're gonna say. Do you not see that? I noticed that a lot in I've been listening a lot to Scaredy Cats, and all the movies that they have, it's all horror movies, and all the critics of the critical, what's the word? That
can definitely be especially true if you're watching somebody that like makes, because I think that's like weekly content, isn't it? Or really frequent content. That tends to get especially formulaic, where there's like they're kind of like riffing on the same thing over and over again. Although I don't know, I haven't kept up with Scaredy Cats, but I feel like it was more like just, here's a movie I feel like talking about, more so than like I wait until this big moment where I have specific things I want to say about this so much. It's hard to have that kind of event to your essays when they're made that frequently. I don't know.
The thing is, like, sometimes I am well aware that I'm watching a video and I'm not gaining the fresh new insight that I may have been gaining in the other video that I might have watched from the same person. And so I imagine, and this is just me asking you because you're the one that's doing the writing, I imagine when you're writing, you're a lot more intimately aware of that reality, that you're just rehashing some of your takes and some of your attitudes.
Yeah, I haven't had enough time to be rerunning the same things because I only have 2 real major essays so far. And and a lot of my ideas are about pretty different things. Like I take issue with the world building in Outer Worlds. I want to go into the queer coding of B-stars. Just a general run through of Squid Game where I'm like, is this too obvious? Or with there's definitely a struggle when I think about talking about the like here's how Squid Game is tackling class struggles or whatever, and here's how queer coding works in B-stars and so on. And there's the double paradox problem of like, okay, there's a group of really dense people where I have to handhold them through all of this as if none of this has ever been brought up ever before, and half of them will still not be able to follow what I'm talking about. And then there's the people that are already so far deep in that literally like we're having different conversations. Essentially, it's like when you log into an RTS and you're not good at RTSs, and like, oh fuck, they're playing a different game. So it's like, at what level, which audience do you write these things for, and so on, and like how much is worth explaining and things like that. Or like I'm looking at the potential like anarchism in Walking Dead in the true sense of the word, not the chaos sense of the word, and I don't know. There's just a lot of things to potentially get into. It's to the point where like I'm currently, like, this morning I started writing about Kingdoms of Amalur, and I'm just ranting about it without saying anything more important, just ranting about a game I don't like. And I'm like, oh man, this is so much easier to write. And in some of my free time I've been writing just kind of just spewing fiction basically. And holy fucking shit, I can just knock out like 3,000 words in 5 hours in the evening sometimes, like partly because I'm just making up a story and partly because I'm not intending on anyone reading it. But like I'm like, for a while there, I'm like, can I just not like make words just come out? Like, why can't I do? But then when I do fiction, it like, I'm like, holy shit, it's just going. Like, I'm just going and going and going. Like, I definitely can happen. It's just I have so many doubts, and I hyperanalyze every phrase and like sit there and rewrite the same sentence sometimes, trying to get like the right message across and figure out what's worth saying. And then also like, holy shit, is it a struggle to figure out how to structure your thoughts in a way that like here's the order in which I'm going to say all these things and where I'm going to go. And then like midway through writing the whole thing, you come up with like 3 new things that do complement your point, but where the fuck do you put them? And then like is this whole thing going to flow? Am I going to have to reread this thing and then rewrite it essentially afterwards? And it's very complicated to get. Like, once you get past like 3,000 words, it's very much a struggle to keep going with your essay and figure out how to like keep it all going.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm experimenting with splitting one thing into multiple things, because like I started off being like, I'm watching the new season of Walking Dead, and you're seeing how like there's these young people that grew up in this world, and like how like there's generational shifts and different people react differently to this stuff, and the world, like the structure of the world has changed around this pandemic. And it's like, oh, this is like, I could probably draw some parallels between that and COVID. And then I start sketching out those ideas, and then it just keeps going and going and going and going and going. But then you're like, okay, but now here's these political topics that find myself writing about, and also just the part where I'm just ranting about my many grievances with the show. And I'm like, are these 3 different essays? Do I now have 3 essays? Do I have the anarchism, the COVID, and the unhinged ranting about Walking Dead essays? And like, does this become a multi-pronged project now? And it's a whole thing. And then then you can start a 3-part project and then not finish any of them, and then just start writing something else. I can definitely see why it can take so long for people to finish anything, let alone like one H Bomber guy is like, and this one's about fucking vaccines, so I have to read a bunch of research papers and also like talk to some consultants about how to best phrase all the parts about autism to not be insensitive and all these other things that you're worried about. And it's like, holy fuck, that gets paralyzing. And then you have to like also worry about something that I don't necessarily worry about so far, which is being funny, like writing jokes throughout the whole thing. I'm like, oh fuck, comedy writing. I thought this was a research paper. Like I don't, the amount of shit that goes into some of these people, you really start to realize too, like how many video essays that are popular are written by multiple people.
Mm-hmm.
Like Sarah Zed's really good about constantly giving credit to her co-writer Emily. Like that phrase appears multiple times per video usually, but otherwise it's less obvious. Like, oh yeah, these people have like a staff in many cases that are all working together on this thing, both for like channel running purposes, but also like consulting, and also like having an editor and having people to discuss ideas with. Like I have I launched onto this whole thing as a response to the Lindsay Ellis thing, discussing like here's all the downsides of being a YouTuber and all the things I want to warn people about. And I was like, well, I would also like to like discuss this with other people, not only to like find like is there stuff in here I shouldn't say, or stuff I should remove or change, or like the blind spots I know I have, like with race and gender and sexuality and so on. It's like it'd be very productive to have like a female perspective and a trans perspective, for example, to discuss like the specific and unique ways that that's a problem for those people in this field that I can't speak to. But also, how do you get that perspective reasonably? And it's like you just haven't. Unfortunately, a lot of people's essays are bound to be full of these blind spots, basically because they don't have the connections to be like, okay, here's my network of YouTubers that I can discuss that have these unique perspectives, and we're going to collab, and here's their 3-minute bit about how they complement this section because they can bring in their trans perspective or something. I'm like, I don't have any, like my entire network of quote unquote YouTubers is like, it's pretty much you guys, where it's like there's 0 people who make a living doing it, and everybody is a white dude, more or less. And most of them, and most of the people that I collaborate with are like very like, it's like the side project to their side project to their side project. Like they get around to it when they feel like it, kind of thing. So it's like almost nobody has the perspective of having an audience the way that I do. The closest being Colonel, of course. And almost no one has a different experience to share, because they're all Let's Players and they all come from most of the same background. So I'm like, that's not a helpful network for this kind of script. But like I put out a tweet like, hey, mutuals, fucking DM me or whatever, and the helpfully people that follow me liked it and retweeted it and stuff, but I did not receive a single DM from a YouTuber. As a result, there was 0 catches, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know how to address that kind of thing besides just putting out a worse thing and being like, sorry for all the mistakes.
I mean, I think there definitely comes there is some level where you need to get, like step to get to that point. You have to make a lot of mistakes and make a lot of not great content, and eventually it's like as you become popular, your expectation for quality goes up, kind of thing. And so once you reach that point where it's like, okay, well, I'm at that final crossroad where now I have enough people that I can ask others to help me out to make better quality content, because that's the expectation now. But the problem is like, no one wants to make bad content. No one wants to make not good quality content. You want to make the best you can possibly make every time. But just not having access to those resources until you get to a certain threshold is frustrating.
There's also I'm just gonna say this. I don't know if it applies to this situation in the subject in particular, and also I don't know at what stage of writing you're in. So there's a lot of caveats to what I'm about to say, but there's also the reality that some things are just not, or some perspectives, I suppose, are just not yours to talk about, in the sense of you can't you can, I don't think you can expect yourself to be able to talk about a trans perspective or a queer perspective in regards to, even for example.
It's why I would want input, or even just straight up like, here's 3 minutes of somebody else in the video.
No, but what I'm saying is
because of the fact that like I can't be like because otherwise I was just like paying lip service to the vague concept of like, and this might be worse if you're a woman, and then that's it. That's all I say, and that doesn't feel real.
You can say your perspective about it. What I'm saying is, nobody expects your video to be the perspective of a trans person, for example, and you shouldn't expect your video to have that as well, because at a certain point there's a certain level of appropriation, I suppose, of you just bringing in those perspectives into your own video instead of pointing people to, here's a channel that talks about this, or do you know what I mean? Like you can say the other people's perspectives, you can account for that in your own opinions and perspectives, but there's a certain level of appropriation as well, I think, that might be I
think generally speaking, featuring somebody in your video and then sending people to them is more effective than just name dropping them and hoping people click it, because historically I can't even get people to follow through with me name dropping my own other channel, like let alone person they've never met before in a personality driven platform.
No, I wasn't, because so that's why I was saying the caveats, because in my head for some reason I was just thinking people would tell you, hey, this is my opinion, this is my perspective, and then you would incorporate that into your own script, and I wasn't thinking. I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, it would be either sourced or it'd be literally their voice, depending on the context of the collaboration, which I am not experienced at coordinating or know how to even network. I find emailing other YouTubers or DMing them or whatever like intensely stressful, and the answer usually is nothing. Usually you don't hear back at all. And to the extent that it's like, there's an element of like I think the reason that people generally collaborate is usually because they're like mutual admirers of each other's content. And so if your stuff doesn't have reach, then nobody knows you exist. And so that you're just another sort of like faceless person showing up in their inbox in a way that like I relate to, because like I like, especially like with audience members, sometimes like I'll like an audience member will make their own Let's Play channel, and then they'll want to collaborate, and I'll usually just let it die there. And it's like, and I feel bad every time, but I'm also like, I don't know you. And it's like, it's really weird to like, just like try to push through with interacting with somebody that you don't know and so on. And, and in my case, usually it's like people with a brand new account and no audience, just trying to like be like, let me in. And I'm like, how do I get a read of your personality and whether or not you'd be a good fit, or whether or not like we would be friends, or I even like you, or you're not full of like all sorts of distressing ideas you're just gonna like jump out with the moment you're on camera or something. And also just the stress of meeting people and all that. Like there's like, I've seen it from both sides, and I know that's like there's like 100 reasons why it's like a weird experience. So I don't have answers about any of it, but I just know, but just from experience and example, that like it's a good idea to have a wider context about certain things. But then what people don't always realize is when they make that criticism or bring that up is that it's like the logistics and interpersonal relationship built into the idea of how you get that perspective is like actively difficult. Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of hard to answer how you go about doing that.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of trial and error, but there's also, again, this comes back to the like, you don't want to make bad content, you don't want to make mistakes. No one's like actively trying to create a bad channel. So there's like a lot of vetting process that goes in there. But I guess there's a, how do you describe it? Like, I get, sometimes you do have to take the risk. You make content with someone, but the idea is that when you make that content with someone, there's like, you have a process before it goes live. You can waste your time. It is a waste of time, but you can at least, it's not like a live stream. like you're talking about, where if like you can't just bring someone onto a live stream because, oh God, what if they say something bad? There's a lot of risk there. But with like at least like edited content, you can at least get a feel. You go like, okay, well you submitted a lot of information here that's clearly bad, and in bad faith or whatever. And so like maybe you can move on. You don't obviously include that, and you can check that person off the list. But again, yeah, it comes down to like finding people that are willing to do that, finding people that that hopefully aren't bad. And like, how do you coordinate? How does compensation work? How does all this other logistics? It's like, again, it's like running a business. It's like running a company. You suddenly are like doing a lot of sales and PR that you just don't really know how to do, given like your general content creation has always just been Let's Plays, which doesn't really require that much.
It's completely outside of my skill set.
Yeah, it's not something you've been working on since you started YouTube, because it's not what you needed to do in YouTube to survive. Yeah. And so, there's like, go ahead.
I was just saying, you're touching on something that's very near and dear to our hearts, I suppose, which is you can't, like, as YouTubers, we can't afford to spend time investing into a project and then scrap it halfway down the road for whatever reason. Everything is so tight all the time that it's
we're busy.
Yeah,
we're very busy generally,
but we're busy in a way that is always with aim of production. Like it's the feeling that streamers and YouTubers get of they can't play games by themselves because it feels like they're just wasting time, and it's super bad in so many ways. But on that I think the more important takeaway from that is realizing that there's no investment. All of our time is either wasted time because we did something wrong or something didn't work out, or we're producing things. We're doing a Let's Play or streaming or whatever, and so that means we don't have time to try somebody out. And that's why I think that's part of the reason why Keith feels how he feels, and I agree, the sort of reticence towards people reaching out. And yeah,
and just the general, I just have a general stress with meeting people too. I don't like new people.
I
don't know who. There's definitely people that just run up to random people, and I've had friends that just fucking make friends on the fly constantly, and you're like, what the fuck? Just walked up to that person, and now they're like coming to tabletop night. Like what?
Oh,
like, how did this happen?
That's making friends on the fly. I thought you were just. Oh.
Yeah, no, you're just like, holy shit.
There's just
some
people
that
who
are incredibly forward, and you're like, what is happening?
It's just about being trusting, I think, more than necessarily being friendly. That's scary.
Be less trusting.
Yeah, right?
I mean, I'll have hang-ups where if somebody says yes to something, but then they don't, but then it's not a good time or whatever, then I'm like, oh God, how many more times do I keep messaging them about maybe it being a good time later, or was it not being a good time, them politely saying no, or like how much do you pursue the potential connection to another person that you don't know after the first time, like maybe didn't work out or maybe was a no to begin with. I hate it.
I mean,
I hate the whole thing.
More of, I feel like that's more of someone else needing to be better about properly explaining.
Communicate, yeah.
Yeah, like they just need to be better about communicating. I feel like if you're trying to collaborate with someone, you don't want to be wishy-washy about that. You don't want to be like, maybe not right now, a little bit later, because when there's a little bit later, like just say, hey, I'm in the middle of a project. Give me give me a month or two, and I'm down to do that. Or no, I'm not really interested. I'm not doing collaborations at this time. Thanks for reaching out. Like, I don't know. Again, this goes back to individuals. Obviously, people have to be good about communication, which is not humanity's strong suit, surprisingly. And so
surprisingly,
well, I mean, it's the only thing we're good at is talking, and somehow we're bad at it. So good on us. The
We're good at making music as well sometimes.
which takes communication because we have to communicate how that works. We have to express that knowledge some way. And so then you get people are saying certain things are certain things and they're not things. But the point is that creating, trying to like build, it's just networking. Trying to network with people in your field is really frustrating when you don't have a mutual in. There's not like, trying to think of a good example here. Like, in like a certain business, they would have like an actual cocktail mixer kind of deal where people from a certain field go and meet other people in that field and they talk about their field, and some of them use it as a way to grow, like they learn information about something in their field they didn't know about from somebody who does that, or they learn new people and they talk to new people. And like
it can be a uniquely isolating job.
Yeah.
Because it has all these really weird quirks and elements and stresses, but also no one you talk to about them understands them because they can't experience them. And then you're dealing with this weird parasocial element where you're like, okay, well, all the people that would understand any of the problems I have or the questions I have are people that only I know, but they don't know me. So there's like that barrier where it's like, there's this whole thing to get into about parasocial relationships and how like, you audience do not know me and this is not a two-way relationship. I basically don't know most of you exist in any real way, and even the ones that I do kind of know exist, it's not really in an appreciable way. It is not in any way comparable to the hundreds of hours you've listened to me talk or whatever. And like that seemed like a nice clean division until I realized, oh fuck, all of my peers that I would have any interest in collaborating with are people that I have a one-sided parasocial relationship with in the exact same way, but they're also like kind of my peers, and that's like a very difficult to reconcile phenomenon. And it genuinely seems like the solution is just get famous and then happen to both know about each other.
That's what I'm saying is like there comes a point for YouTubers. Yeah, for YouTubers specifically, there comes a point where you just, once you reach a certain level, you're then allowed to reach out to people because now you are standing in the same plateau as them. You're like, yeah, I'm a guy with 1 million subs. Hey, guy with 1 million subs, can we talk? And it's like, I guess I can understand where you're coming from, 1 million subs, fellow. Like, yes, let's communicate. And it's like this weird like club with tiers. So like the more subscribers you have, the more, the higher up the tier you can go. Obviously there's differences here. Like you have, there are people like, I don't know, you look at PewDiePie, it's like no one stands at his plateau. He's a lonely man up there with a bunch of corporations next to him. But like, obviously he collaborates with people below his station, like Markiplier or Jacksepticeye. But then you look at like, then you keep going down that list. You do the like degrees of Kevin Bacon. It's like, well, how often does Markiplier collaborate with someone who's like at 100,000 subs? No. What about like 300,000 subs? And you just keep going. So like, oh, so here's like the limit. Here's where, it's like an age slider on Tinder. Like, I'm only going to go after people between this age and this age. Like, no, if you're this much, too much for me. Like, it's weird, but it makes sense to a degree. Like, you don't, again, like you talked about, you don't want to take this risk with basically your entire job. You don't want to like bring someone in who is a literal tornado and just destroys your entire business because you didn't do the proper vetting job, which normally can be done, hopefully, by subscriber count. You say like, well, if someone's like 1 million popular, they can't be a bad person, but then
of course they can.
Of course they can. But the point is like you create these like false ideas in your head. Like, okay, well, 1 million people, maybe they're not like the worst people on the planet. So let's give them, like let's look at their profile, see what they kind of are. Like now you're giving them time. Even if it's not directly communicating, you're giving them the time of looking at them. And like as soon as you do that, it's like that's an acknowledgement that they are at least on an equal plane. Like, yeah, you would definitely interact with them. Now let's see if you can interact with them like on a human level. And obviously, and it goes from there. And so that's like what's frustrating is I think that's what's important about networking events is that networking events are supposed to kind of like burn those curtains down. Like there's no blinders to prevent you from saying like, you have 1,000 subscribers, I won't even look at you, peasant. Like the idea is that you can you walk up to someone and you interact with them. You see if
That's
you
why
get
everyone
along.
lives in LA.
Well, yeah, that's why everyone lives in LA. But LA isn't a good place to live, so stop doing that.
No.
But secondly, it's not that's not a cohesive way to do this when YouTube is a literal like planetary wide job. Like, you know, people are YouTubers everywhere. So how does a British YouTuber become up and coming without flying to LA? Like, sorry, bud. Like, you know, I don't know British slang, but insert British slang here. You're not coming to LA. Like, it's frustrating. And I think like I remember very early on in the whole YouTube game, there used to be these little mixer events. I remember at like the YouTube headquarters, they used to have little parties for channels that were a certain size that obviously weren't the corporations. They weren't invited. They didn't need to. And I remember these little soirees used to happen, and that's how like people would interact with each other. And then it moved on to like conventions, like this like why TwitchCon exists, and I think YouTube has like VidCon or something. Like conventions became the new way to network with people in your field, where it's like, hey, I met you at VidCon. Let's make a video. We ate breakfast at Denny's after getting drunk one day. Now we're besties. And like I noticed that I would always see channels I would follow, and then I would see them like go to a convention like Twitch or VidCon, and suddenly they were like collaborating with another person. Like, who's that? Where did you meet them? What breakfast did you have with them after a party? And like that's seemingly how you need to grow, is by needing to interact with people in a environment that
conventions are really appealing looking these days too.
Yeah, right. Conventions are like super appealing right now.
Yep, I love danger.
Yeah, the only thing more compelling is a boat. Let's get on a boat with a bunch of YouTubers in the middle of a pandemic. Definitely gonna go well.
What about a convention in a boat?
A convention in a boat for YouTubers, but it's run by TikTokers. So every station's manned by somebody doing a dance and lip syncing to a song, but in the background you see a bunch of YouTubers collaborating and talking with one another. That would be great. What a utopia we could live in. But yeah, no. So I think that's kind of the hurdle right now. Is I think personally, I think you're at a point where like you can make good content, but you're not going to be able to collaborate until you start interacting with people that also make your same content, but not over the internet, because it's not going to work, because people over the internet are, you know, on the defensive side. They're like they're basically sitting there with shields up like, I like potatoes, and they're like swinging that sword as they do that, but then put their shield up immediately. And so you say something like, me too, can we talk about potatoes? And like, no. Like it's like, all right, sorry I asked. But if you did that like in person, they're like, I like potatoes, and you're like, I like potatoes, that guy gets it. Like then you can collaborate, interact with each other, because you're like, you can, yeah, like, you know, you're right there in person, and you're like I don't know how to describe it. It's a weird feeling between interacting with someone online only and interacting with someone in person that is a stranger. Like when you're interacting with a person physically, like there's a difference in how you can quickly build a connection, and like not friendship necessarily, but just like you can, again, it's like you can talk to people as people in person a lot easier than you can talk to people as people on the internet. Because again, I don't know, there's like the anonymity aspect is like, even if you put your name and your face and your address and like your social on your Twitter account, people are still like, I don't know about that guy. Still a little suspicious. I think there needs to be some more verification here. Like there's no amount that you can fillet yourself on the internet before someone like implicitly trusts you. But in person, it's a lot easier to get that, because they're like, okay, well, he's within stabbing range. He's definitely a real person. I think he's I think we can get along. Like I don't know, there's like a vulnerability in real life that you can't get on the internet that I think makes this
Andrews,
kind
you're trying to get me on a list.
What? I'm the one who's saying this. You're not the one saying it at all. Now come on down to AndrewCon, where we're all within stabbing range. We all get our own little circle, and we can stand with it. Don't leave the circle, because then you're too close. Yeah,
stay in stabbing range.
Yeah, you gotta stay in stabbing range. You leave stabbing range, the trust is broken. That's it. You never come back again. Yeah, that's I don't know. That's the way I see it. That's whenever I think about stuff like I like the idea, or I keep meddling around the idea in my head about doing anime videos, but then I think like no, I absolutely never will because it requires me to like interact with other anime people, and I just refuse to. I don't
Your
want to talk
worst
to those.
nightmare of people.
Yeah, I don't want to interact with weebs. I hate weebs. I don't want to be around them. They're awful people. And like they have the worst taste. They have unnecessary amounts of gross weeb shit around that I don't want to look at. It's just not great. I don't want to deal with it. And but if you want to get into that space, the best way to do it is obviously to be interacting with other weebs because they're going to provide you like access or knowledge that you may not have for various reasons. Like some of them live in countries that are easier to get stuff, or some of them speak a language you may not speak. But and I'm trying to become a one-man facilitator. I'm trying to become fluent in the language, so I don't need nobody in that area, and I can, I've been to the country multiple times, so I'm aware of how to navigate Japan. I could probably just go there and grab something real quick and run away.
Grab something like, real quick.
Yeah. You could just I like if something's like in a weird underground mall in like Tokyo. I'd be like, oh, okay, I'll just take the train over here, quickly run down there and push all the other American weebs out of the way and grab the thing and scuttle out of there, get on a plane and head back home real quick. Like,
all right. You'll remember that I had a language barrier question for one of my essays before too, where I'm like, it'd be really helpful if I knew somebody that could really reliably translate things, because I was like, I want to, because I'm trying to, somebody that both can translate it and also has like all the cultural context of what it would mean, so they can explain it to me for what it means exactly. Because like there's like in the Beastars stuff, there are so many questionable descriptions and things where I'm like, what do they mean by that exactly? Like, what is the cultural context that is like several paragraphs of context you need that aren't what they're fitting in this tiny blurb here? Because they're saying interesting things about gender expression in the description of the characters at the end of each of these volumes, and I'm like, okay, what do they mean by that though? Because you're like, there's it's like it was like a Japanese author wrote it in a Japanese context, and then somebody else localized it into the volume that I have, and then I'm like, okay, like if I go online and I read a fan translation of it that existed before it came to the United States, it's kind of saying something completely different, and that's even more interesting, and I could have a whole point about this if it means what I think it means, but also none of it could mean what I think it means. And I'm like, I need to be able to have a conversation with somebody that fully understands both languages and the cultural context of what the page is going for and what that means in context. And I'm like, or I can go fuck myself. I don't. Otherwise, I'm just like grasping vaguely at like that. This might mean this if I like just make several leaps basically, because I can't be sure.
And then you're cinema sins or something.
Maybe. But that's the problem. Is there's a lot of factors involved, especially like the higher the quality you want to make of any kind of essay video, the more hurdles you're going to run into, the less access you have to a network of people. And that is frustrating. It feels like, it feels helpless or hopeless. It's like, well, why even bother getting into the space if I can't even make the kind of quality content I want to make? But again, that's where you just kind of have to sacrifice that. You kind of have to accept that there will be limitations, and you can wiggle your way through sometimes. You can try to, you can do as much as you can to try to wiggle through that, but sometimes you just have to express that you can't do it. Sometimes you just have to say like, no, I can't, like there's some expressions going on here, but I can't quite parse them. But just know that there is deep gender expressions going on in this section. It's like, I don't know. There's, and like, it's a lot worse too in other cultures when you're trying to parse things happening in a culture that you're not a part of. Like a lot of gender identity stuff in Japan's really tricky to understand, because it's a very different culture than most Western cultures, but two, it's not as clear cut either. It's not like here where, or like in the US where some people are like, yeah, those people are bad, and then some people are like, they're humans, just let them do it. Like, it's not that clear cut. It's like there's like weird what do you call it, like traditional views and expectations that you're navigating through, and like how some people are worried about the traditional values, and some people are worried about like the morality, and some people are worried about like how is it going to look when we advertise on Facebook. Like, there's just a lot of weird elements that sometimes aren't as similar to your own culture, and that can be frustrating trying to navigate when you're like, I also don't speak this language, so what the hell is anybody saying about it? A lot of angry people, don't know what any of them are saying. Like,
yeah, there's some questions with like going into Squid Game where you're like, well, obviously I'm going to be looking at this as an American.
yeah
And I'm going to like almost exclusively talk about it in American terms. Like, I can look up the one union busting thing that a specific plot point is about, but aside from that event, I'm not going to be like, and here's my PhD in South Korean context. Like,
yeah, like
like, no, I don't fucking.
Yeah, like whenever I watch Korean films,
there's a certain level of just needing to be able to just go like, fuck it, and just commit and just like put something out and just be like, that's what it is, and hope for the best. Like, there's other things that fuck with me where like it was so much easier to write my 2 videos that were about movies, because you can just rewatch a movie. Like, I can watch the movie and I can record the movie while I'm watching the movie from whatever service it's on, so I can use it for footage, and then I can sit there and keep like scrabbling through the movie while I'm writing my script. And then when I'm completely done with my script and proofread it, I can then rewatch the movie with the script in mind and note whether or not there's like massive contradictions or mistakes that are happening, because that's all I've been thinking about is my script. And the movie is just like, I can relatively easily watch one movie like 4 times in the process of writing a script about it. I can't really do that with like Beastars the same way, and that's like the easiest example because it's only 2 seasons that are relatively short of like 20-minute episodes. I wanted to write about Data from Star Trek, and I'm like, hang on a minute, this is almost 200 episodes. How the fuck do I know when I even have a good enough point that isn't massively contradicted by season 5 episode 2, or like I have like my scripts about Walking Dead, and I'm like, I'm not going to rewatch Walking Dead like when I'm done writing these scripts to see if they're good enough. Like, the best I can do is put the scripts up on Patreon and hope one really dedicated Walking Dead fan happens to read them and actually points out something really glaring. Otherwise, it's literally just going to be out in the public, and then the 3,000th person that watches it notices the glaring flaw. And you're like, oh no. But and I wanted to write about I was talking about Colonel about collaborating on Outer Worlds, because he has a lot of opinions about Outer Worlds, and it's like, that's a terrifying thing to write about it because it's a long ass RPG, and it's like, how do I replay the entire game just to finish my script to make sure it's not massively misguided? But then there's and to some extent, there's like a certain level of fuck it, let's just go. Like, the more I've rewatched them, I think I said before, like I see the flaws in other people's essays. Like, when as I become familiar with the essay and also the source material, I noticed like the gaps in their arguments or weird points that don't seem to make sense, or parts where they're weirdly mean in a way that seems counterproductive. And like something that caught my eye recently is that I've been watching Jessie Gender, and she pointed out that she's a perfectionist, and I'm like, man, can I get the brand of perfectionism that you have? Because like you cannot accuse Jessie Gender of not being prolific. If she's a perfectionist, and I don't want to disregard anything she says about herself, but I'm sure that the little reviews she does are just like basically spur of the moment, like just crank something out. Like, it's like, oh, she reviews every episode of Star Trek as it comes out across 3 shows, and that's like just kind of like filler, I imagine. And so I'm not talking about that specifically, but like there's like a 40+ minute essay like once a week practically, and I'm like, how the actual fuck are you like committing to scripts so consistently and then recording and editing them? I'm like, how? I want that brand of perfectionism, because I sure as fuck like mine whatever, if it's even is perfectionism, the anxieties I have about this stuff lead to mostly just not finishing things or needing to like go over them again and again, and then going on another project because looking at this one's too exhausting now, and so on.
Yeah, there's a different level of I think the part of it is falling into a rhythm. So the things that you consider subject to perfectionism can be different based on different people. It's like if you ever seen somebody be like, I'm a perfectionist, and then you look at their stuff and it's all crap. It's the same thing. Obviously not saying that about Jesse Zenger, but it's I think like because people gain the experience in their craft, it becomes get her brand of perfectionism for sure.
I've officially found enough like essay style channels that I actually have trouble keeping up with their videos, which I didn't think was possible because of how infrequent most of them upload. But it is a full ass field.
Yeah, I mean, one last thing on like creating bad content or creating failed content. I always think back to like a really good, elegant reaction to this was like Super Eye Patch Wolf's The Fall of Bleach 4 years later. Like, I think that's probably like the solution here is that you create something, you do your best, and if you fail, then you'll have to come back to it. And like that's okay. That's perfectly fine to like need to come back and correct the record, so to speak. I think there's nothing inherently wrong with that. I think what's always wrong is when you like obstinately believe that you always made the right thing the first time. Like it's just you have to, you're gonna make mistakes, and the important part is knowing how big those mistakes are. Are they big enough to change the entire narrative that you created, or are they something minute like, oops, I got the year wrong? Like, are you gonna make a whole new video because you got the year wrong? Probably not. But
pinned comment, actually it's the UN, not the US.
Yeah, exactly. But obviously
it's I thought both of my videos were really bad.
Really?
Yeah. And then the audience opinion became my opinion, essentially, where it's like I needed them to just go out, and then people react to them because you're so deep into the weeds that you hate everything.
I think
are any of these even good points, and is any of this even worth it? Is this fucking hospital bit just self-indulgent bullshit?
That's how I feel watching
the hospital
anime.
bit. Which one was it?
The hospital part of Annihilation.
Oh,
there's a lot of that. There's obviously a lot of that in the YouTube video about YouTube, where it's like, am I just being a whiny little shit? Is this just me being annoying and whiny, and none of this matters?
Yeah, always. But what matters is how other people view it. So
I can see the pitfall of thinking, overthinking, basically.
And of course, one of the first fucking headings that I come up on is like, one of the first rules about this kind of job is similar to that of like being a game developer and so on, where it's like, isn't this your passion job? Isn't this what you dreamed of? There's a billion people that would take this up in an instant if you just got the fuck out of the way. So why are you complaining? Like that's the trap of being in game development. And there's a similar thing with YouTube, where it's like, because so many people want to be YouTubers, you're seen as like an entitled little shit if you complain about any of it, basically. And so that's like an inherent thing to break through and also discuss directly when you're making a video about the downsides of being a YouTuber.
Yeah, I don't have patience for that sort of pushback on any job whatsoever. Like, it doesn't matter what you do. You can be, I don't know, what would be the dreamest of jobists? Whatever, it doesn't matter. You can have the job that everybody wants and only one person in the world can have, and you're still entitled to teaching the rest of us the downsides of that. Because it's not even complaining, it's not even trying to get it better, it's teaching. Because somebody who doesn't do YouTube has a lot of difficulty understanding the downsides of doing YouTube.
Yeah, which is the point.
Which is, yeah. So it's not even about not accepting, it's just shut up and listen. Because there's like I think specifically, I mean, I don't know if it applies as much to long form video content as it does to Let's Play, but it's something that we tend to not identify as much. I get that impression, is that we don't think of ourselves, or we don't think of YouTubers as gig economy workers, which they absolutely are.
Yeah.
And the fact that the barrier to entry is so small, and well, it's not incredibly small, but it is a lot smaller than, for example, being an Uber driver or being a music artist or something like that.
The barrier for entry is smaller, but but also the chance of anything coming of it is like astronomically smaller. Whereas you start doing Uber, you just get paid, which is like, wow, I would love that. Would be incredible if on YouTube you could just like start doing it and then get paid for the work you did. No, you do it for free for like half a decade in most cases, and then suddenly you start making some money, and you're like, oh my god, I can do that.
Yeah, but Keith, people would be killing to have your job. What's wrong with you?
but I also think that there's a misalignment between expectations from viewers and the reality. I speak from myself. When I started
almost
doing
everyone's
YouTube,
interpreted to be making more money than they are.
Oh yeah, for one, but
and having an easier job than they do.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, but the vast majority of time that a YouTuber spends working is not making videos. It's not. Maybe it's not even editing videos, but it might be editing videos. There's so much more management that you need to do, and it's easily half the time, if not more. Like I definitely spend a lot more time editing and uploading things and commenting and looking at comments and preparing for more games and looking into troubleshooting things and whatnot and trying to get better than I do playing. And most of my videos, and I still, when I was doing most of my videos, just start recording, stop recording, and upload immediately without editing. Even then, I was doing more other random nonsense than I was actually playing. So yeah, it's just, I can definitely see where like people have no idea. But the thing is, as streamers don't work that way though. There's a lot less other random nonsense for streamers, because once you have your things set up, which it does take a lot of time and know-how. Don't get me wrong, getting a streamer doing their job properly, it does take a lot of time. But once you're done with that, unless you go out of your way to do it when you're off camera, you can just turn the camera on and stream.
I think streaming is kind of I think that streaming is a lot scarier and a lot harder in some aspects, because there's this element of live. There's a lot of element of timing involved. Like I think there's, with the expectation, like with YouTube, you can a little bit more easily set expectations. You can publish a video at 8 a.m. and you can schedule that published video 2 years in advance, whereas like you can't already go live. Like you need to show up at 8 a.m. You need to be ready, not have any technical issues. Hope your internet doesn't decide that today is the day it has cut you off from the world and is trying to kill you. Like there's so many, there's like a lot of really
don't have
obnoxious...
any pain flare-ups from your disability or whatever.
Yeah,
like the number of like just human elements.
There's so many annoying factors that go into like keeping a consistent live experience going. And this is like there's like a big there's a big VTuber I watch that has a lot of medical conditions, and it is like a struggle sometimes to stream, and based on like a lot of it's based on like, oh, if they get like the medicine they need to survive depends on if they have the energy to stream, and like stuff like that. And it's scary. It's like scary to see how devastating, or how devastated they are that they couldn't make it like exactly on time, or the fact that they had to skip a day because they literally woke up and like felt pain all over their body. And it's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I can't believe I can't stream today. It's like, you're you're a living person, that should be your like number one priority first, and then streaming should be second. But like on YouTube, you can be like, I woke up and I don't want to live today. All right, I'm gonna do this tomorrow. And like, so you could just lay down and, you know, if you have the content, you do. If you don't, then maybe you can like quickly make a video that says like, hey guys, sorry, I don't feel very good. This is coming out tomorrow or whatever because I didn't do my thing. Goodbye. And then like,
or you
wake up tomorrow.
You do it like,
feel better.
You do it like I do, which is dramatically reduce the amount of videos you put out, but it's basically the same revenue every month. It's not much, but it didn't get affected for whatever reason.
Do what I do and just don't release videos at all. And just sometimes show up with a whole series and then run away into the night. But like, yeah, obviously this isn't my job, but whenever I see like live streamers, it always is like this. It's like looking at YouTube and going like, yeah, but how could I make this a lot harder and worse for me? I'm gonna do that. And you're like, oh my god, what are you doing? It's like just I don't know, like it's weird to see live streamers continue, like especially ones that do it for years. It's like crazy to me, the idea that you keep up such a rigorous habit that you stream. And like I think about the time investment there, like you just block out a time of your life. And sure, it's like working, you know, you take it like working, you block out 8 hours of your life. Everyone does it in some way, but to be looking at people for that much time is like so much to me. The idea that someone could just sit down and stream for 4 hours and then like turn around and have to spend another 4 hours like figuring out promotions, what you're going to do next, like, you know, editing that content and doing social media, and just like it's just so much just for an experience that whenever I look from the outside, there's just a lot of people saying a lot of things in chat, sometimes mean stuff, and you have to like endure that live. I couldn't imagine playing, I don't know, like all the comments I got during Honey Pop were awful. They like kind of were almost breaking me. And I couldn't imagine getting those comments while playing live, because I feel like that would just there's like it's like imagining
live comments are so much worse than random comments.
Yeah, like you're like on a train, and every time a comment hits, it's like wind pushing the train off the tracks. And like the harder the comments get, the more you're like, all right, maybe I'll just turn with the wind and go off the tracks this time because it sounds way better. Like it's crazy to me. But like I you know, I don't think live streamers have it easy. I don't think YouTubers have it easy. It's just this like, it's crazy to me the kind of like back twisting you do to do entertainment stuff on the internet. There's a lot of sacrifice that I cannot fathom doing, because I can't even do it myself. And so like seeing someone commit to doing this on bigger and bigger levels,
like sign off your entire Sunday most weeks.
I do.
We do the podcast, and then there's a break, and then we do Final Fantasy for 4 hours.
Yeah, and it is kind of hard. It can be really hard when like basically I get 2 days or like 1 day to do things on the weekend, and then the rest of then I'm working Monday through Friday, and then Saturday is like Friday nights, and Saturday nights are kind of like, well, sometimes I might join the live stream, or sometimes I might try and do other stuff. Like, it's tough trying to balance all that, and especially like, you have other people you're balancing it with, you're tying schedules to other people, and that makes it harder. But but like I've made a habit now, like every day when I get off work, there's this time window I have between when I get off work and when my partner gets home, that I have basically this 100% free time, and I use that time to just do YouTube stuff. I'll record like 1 or 2 episodes of something, or I'll record an episode of something, edit an episode of something, and then that's it. And then once partner gets home, go into the rotation, make dinner, take Shadow out, eat food, get ready to go to sleep, start the day over again, cycle repeats. But like, that's, like, if they're like in an idealistic world, that 8 hours of time that I'm doing for my job would be dedicated to YouTube, and that's fine. I could do that. But yeah, the problem is juggling this with an actual source of income, because like you talked about, you just do YouTube for like 20 years, and then eventually YouTube's like, here's $5, and you're like, cool, I can buy a pizza. Like,
oh man, I would never want to go back to juggling a YouTube channel with like life. like with like a job where it's like it's so draining to find the energy to do a YouTube channel while also working in a cubicle and whatnot.
Yeah, it's a lot, and that's why like my policy now personally, I've changed my policy to be I'm not going to release videos until I have completed something. So like I didn't start releasing videos for Halo Infinite until I had already beaten Halo Infinite, because I didn't want to. I noticed myself getting into this cycle where I'll like commit and I'll say, okay, I'm going to do a thing.
You kept starting things and then they would just end.
Yeah, and I couldn't finish them because basically it would pile up where something would happen. I couldn't record an episode. I'd get behind, and now that I'm behind, I'm upset because I've missed an episode, and I feel like now I've lost everything, and it all just comes down. That like I just get into a bad spiral.
There was like one session of Heaven's Ward that you needed to edit like 6 months ago, and as a result, all of your Final Fantasy streams stopped being live.
Yeah, like I'm trying. Like I'm slowly been getting through editing them, but now I'm at the point where I'm like, look, I'm going to record it. I have all the footage still. It's all still there. And so I keep editing it. And as I edit it, I keep uploading it. But I just don't want to commit to doing the editing on the YouTube side because I just it's like I don't want to do that because then I don't know how many episodes do I have and how do I space the timing out? Where do I put it in? It's like just this annoying nightmare that I'm like, okay, I'll just deal with this later. Whereas like Halo Infinite was like, all right, I recorded here's all the episodes I recorded, chopped it all up. I literally exported all of them in like one go. I literally just edited every episode because DaVinci lets me like do this really efficient timeline setup. And so I edited everything, put all of it into a render queue, let it just sit there and render for 2 days, render all of my videos, and then uploaded all of them. Again, waited like I think that was actually like 3 days to upload all of them, and then was done. And then like I just wanted basically on my lunch period for work during my lunch, I just sat there and like made the thumbnail for everything, and then when I got off work, I just spent the whole time editing every single video, scheduled it out, was done. It felt really good. I didn't have to think about it for like 2 weeks. Done.
Speaking egads, Andrew, you remembered to name part 2 of Monster Prom after Negojishi, but then you didn't put him in the thumbnail. What are you doing? You gotta get them clicks.
Because look at my thumbnails. I made the conscious decision to put every character with who that character or who that person's trying to go out with. So that way there's the understanding for the audience. Like, I see. That's who everyone's going after.
You gotta get clicks.
Speaking I don't want the clicks for that. I'm done with that. Put it away. Go home.
They're bad
Close
people.
the doors. I'm already
Speaking of Halo.
Speaking
of Halo Infinite,
200,000 views on Tokyo Jungle.
Oh.
I watched Andrew's Halo Infinite Let's Play, and highly recommended. Very good rants.
Very sorry.
The game is terrible.
It's not great. It's not very good at all.
I haven't exposed myself to it because I want to co-op it at some point.
I can't wait to co-op it.
I don't know if I'll have people to co-op with. I guess you.
I'll happily co-op with it because I want to see how bad that game runs with 4 people like fucking hang gliding around. It's gonna be great.
It sure sounds like they don't know how to make it work. Otherwise, it wouldn't be out already.
No, there's no way you can do it. It's gonna be just like the only way you can, because I want to see how they're gonna do the Halo teleport, the patented monumental Halo teleport you to some other location, because oh god, it's gonna be fantastic. I
on all those
wait.
Small maps before they would just Yep.
So it's gonna be fun.
The game was so much smaller before, and you had to teleport to your allies whenever you got too far away. But although that was back when they did split screen, which they already got rid of last game, which is infuriating in its own way. Like Halo 5 already didn't have split screen, which is why I still haven't played it. And Halo Infinite also doesn't have split screen. So like at some point I need to play Halo 5 with people too online, which pretty much just means you. Like because I think that one's that one's only on Xbox One, right? So like I can't play with my friends because they just skipped putting that one on PC for some reason. Thanks.
Yeah.
You can play its multiplayer on PC via some weird workaround thing of like whatever the fuck via Microsoft services, whereas every other game is on Steam. But it doesn't have the campaign for some reason. And it's like that's frustrating.
Honestly, Halo
it's just
2
a weird gap.
Halo 2 not being on PC is the reason why I have the perception that Halo is just not on PC, apart from the
Halo 2
combat
is on
evolved.
PC.
I know, but like in my mind, anytime I think about it, like I know the newer games are, but
No,
Halo
all
2
these-
is on PC.
Every Halo game is available
Halo
on
2
PC right now, except for 5.
Yeah.
Oh, it's 5. Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
Master
then
Chief
I'm
Collection.
completely wrong.
Master Chief Collection has every game up through 4.
Right,
And then
then I'm
they put Halo
completely
Infinite
wrong.
on it. But Halo 5 is not in the Master Chief Collection. And it's like, guys, come on.
And it
That's
would be
weird.
fine. You could keep it out of the Master Chief Collection to be stingy, but at least sell it separately. Like
Yeah.
sell the damn game on PC. But it's
Even
fine
if it is
because
the bad one, it's just frustrating to have like a
Yeah.
single game gap. I'm like, just fucking give it to me.
yeah, it's frustrating. But I really want to play Halo Infinite in co-op because I am so excited to see how bad it goes. I
If they
think
ever
there's
get
just
it to work.
I mean it's right now Big Team Battle's broken and it's been broken for like almost a month now and they still
What?
haven't fixed it. Yeah.
Why is
Is
it
it like that?
broken?
Is it like that time we tried logging in and then it just was like an empty lobby?
So that's a problem. That's a problem that's been happening and like it's only gotten worse since they added playlists. So now it's like a consistent bug. So like basically there's the majority of the time you do Big Team Battle, it will
Game
fail.
of the year.
Yeah, game of the year. And so because they had to, which is great. I love this. Nothing is better than rushing games out to be holiday releases because then the team takes a holiday fucking vacation when everyone goes and breaks your game. So there's nothing more fun than when you release a game that has massively multiplayer elements to it and everyone just destroys your game and you don't have anybody to come and fix it because they're all on vacation. And so the problem is that, yeah, they just haven't had time. Well, they haven't had time to do any quality testing. They've had a lot of time to make products. They sold a lot of new skins on the marketplace. But if you
I
go
haven't
like
played Halo for a while.
if you go and look at the Halo Infinite, yeah, no one has been. If you look at the Halo Infinite subreddit, it is just a fun nightmare. It is like every post is there's always someone saying like, man, it'd be, like I really like this map. It's kind of great. And it's like, yeah, well, just be thankful they didn't sell it for $20. Like every single post on that thing is just someone mad about the monetization, mad that a game like basically Big Team Battle doesn't work, mad it doesn't have co-op, mad it doesn't have Forge, mad it doesn't have like it's like what was the point? What was the point in releasing this game in the state that it was in as quickly as you did if you knew that all it was going to do is get bad press? It's such a weird mentality, and I don't know. I wonder what the.
I mean, it doesn't just have bad press. It like I do keep seeing the consensus that like, oh my god, it's the best Halo ever made, and so on. And it's like, what an incredible product, and so on. Microsoft's back, all that shit.
Someone like those are paid product promotions. They are not real. they are not real promote. Like
I believe
if you play the game, you know it's not real. Like I would understand. Like I can be really extreme about games. Like I could be unrealistically extreme. Halo Infinite is a nothing sandwich. Like there's nothing there. There's nothing there for anyone. And if you take the co-op away, or not co-op, you take the multiplayer away. You like take it out, put it on its own, stand it up, and go, "Hey, how are you doing?" Oh no, that's not good either. Like it's missing so many maps. It didn't even have like playlists for like half the time it's been out. Like it just got playlists like in a couple weeks past. Like that's a thing that's been in every Halo game since launch. And like it's been just nothing but a terrible mess all the way through. And it's like I get, like it's a slow process. They're slowly building this up, but this is a delayed game. Like they thought they were going to release this game like a year ago. How? What happened? What did you do? You can't tell me that one ugly brute made you just completely rework an entire game. There's no way that happened. Like it's just, I don't know.
It's always just movies with Mikey quote. It's just the no one knows what they're doing. Like all the most powerful people in every industry consistently make massive mistakes and just fall on their faces. And it's like, it's impressive. It's fascinating how consistently they're just there are no people that really know what the fuck they're doing in any large field.
and again, I'm fine with that, but I'm not as fine with the idea that it's like passable. Like I don't like the narrative of like, well, it's the best Halo game that we've had so far, and it's like, what? But what's your metric? What's your standard? Like, are you saying Halo 1 wasn't good? Are you saying that like Halo Infinite's better than Halo 1? Because that's really that's a literally tough sale to make. I will not let you make the sale that Halo Infinite is better than Halo 1.
You will not sell this.
Yeah, you can't. You can't sell me that because
there is no
it's
free
not
market
true.
in Halo Infinite.
Yeah, there is no free market. This is this is a very dystopian universe. 1999.
No.
What was the name of that book? 2005? I don't remember anymore. It's just the, I don't know. It's weird to me. Like I can understand the idea that like, yeah, we haven't had a good Halo game in like 20 years. But or no, I'm sorry. 2007 wasn't that long ago.
It feels
whatever.
like it was that
It's
long
been
ago.
like almost 15 years. We haven't had a good Halo game. And I get it. It makes you feel desperate. Again, it makes you feel like you need, just going back to the very beginning of this conversation, it feels like you need to cling on to something like Kingdoms of Amalur. So like, oh, thank God that we have a new similar to Devil May Cry game that we can finally latch on to and
he's referring
feel good
to
about.
the pre-podcast conversation we had about how like just me marveling at the fact that there was reviews comparing Kingdoms of Amalur to Devil May Cry in its combat. I'm like, have you played Devil May Cry? Because like at the time that Kingdoms of Amalur came out, Devil May Cry 4 had been out for like 4 years and was fucking incredible. So it's fascinating that was ever written by a human.
And like that's the thing is like playing Halo Infinite a lot of my biggest complaint is that it does the exact same thing that people praised Halo 1, or it does the exact opposite of the thing that people praise Halo for. Is that Halo is fun because you don't do the exact same thing to survive each encounter. But Halo Infinite is doing the exact same thing to survive each encounter, which is you basically just want to take a exploding barrel, throw it into the group, and then take the strongest, basically the Mauler, take the Mauler and headshot every single person you can and move on with life and leave. And like I played the game on Heroic. I didn't want to play it on Legendary because that's what I do with co-op. So I played on Heroic, and it was consistently the same thing. Grapple up, throw a thing down, like throw a bunch of grenades down, shoot everybody who survived in the head, and then jump down and move on. And you rinse, repeat forever. And that's it.
I am very worried about it being an open world thing where it seems like it would devolve into the Far Cry problem of just attacking the outpost the same way every time because they're not functionally different.
That's my entire argument, is that's why I want to see Halo Infinite multiplayer, because it's just fucking Far Cry. You're just gonna play Far Cry, and you can't trick me. You can't be like, but there's aliens. It's like that doesn't make it not Far Cry. It just means it's a better designed Far Cry. Like
yeah,
like it's just
Far Cry 4 and especially 5 just like flow right through you, and you just like forget them immediately when you play them, because it's just the same loop over and over again until you run out of loop, and you're like, oh, I guess I won the map.
Yeah, the memories that you make in Far Cry are not because the game made good memories. It's because you had to go and scrounge for memories to make in Far Cry. It's you going out of your way and doing something so incredibly stupid that you created a memory. It's not because you're like, whoa, I can't believe that like this cool mission happened. It's you have to go out of your way and make a dumb thing happen on a boring ass mission. So you go like, oh yeah, I remember I had to climb up a hill and stab a guy in the throat. Yeah, I remember that happened, but I threw a helicopter at him. That was really funny. Like, Halo isn't like that. Halo is a lot more interesting. Halo is like, you go into a corridor and you're like, yeah, the fuck I'm gonna do this? I need a way different guns. I can't do this. Is awful. And you run in, you throw a grenade at a guy, and a guy looks at you and runs at you, and you're like, no, that's not what we planned. That's not exactly how we discussed this. And then you go and do it again, and that time the guy runs around and like blows his friends up, and you're like,
it's like when you complimented Halo 1, I was like, well, the multiplayer was in the first game, like the actual competitive multiplayer, but that campaign, even with the blatant like play this level backwards now recycling, it was so good.
It's so good.
It was such a good like series of levels to play back to back, and like there's so many good things I want to revisit there. And The last thing I want is to be like, here's a big open map and we're going to make this game last 10 years, which to me, that sounds like a whole lot like we're going to keep grafting new campaigns onto the same map forever.
Yeah, there's like a
huge... just this expansive green.
Yeah, there's a huge chunk of the map that you can't go to because it's just not accessible. It's part of later DLC. You can obviously
it's not made. It's not about being accessible. They didn't make it.
That's not true because they also didn't make one of the islands you're allowed to go to, but you could still go to it. But
they cut it out.
Yeah, there's literally an island in the top left corner of the entire map, and it's a small little island, and there's nothing on it except one priority target you need to headshot. But if you go to if you go anywhere else on the island that's not that one guy, there's nothing there. It's just hills and trees. It's just
an empty expanse.
Yeah, it's just an empty expanse. And I
it was literally procedurally generated.
The only way you can get there is by flying. You can't just walk across. You have to fly. So you would directly fly to the guy and then directly fly away from the guy. There's no reason you'd ever sit on the ground and do anything there. And I was like, cool. Absolutely great. There's not even unlockables there. There's no like hidden whatever armor stuff. There's nothing there. It's just a fucking barren wasteland. It's like, what is this?
Did you go there in your Let's Play?
Yes. Because I 100%ed that game. I cleared everything out. I killed every enemy. I went to every spot. I got all the items
that's
and
not
stuff.
a franchise I want to hear that phrase in.
Right? I 100%ed
like it's Ghost of
Halo
Tsushima,
Infinite.
fucking Halo. Like, I don't want... No, you beat Halo.
It has collectibles, Keith. You
can't even pick missions. I'm so mad about that.
No, you can't.
Halo Halo should be so good. You have favorite missions and you play them over and over again on Legendary and with friends and so on. And you find out the quirks of like, you can speedrun the level 2 of Halo 1 because if you kill the Marines, then you can skip that area and so on. Like you get all these quirks and playing it. Or like, okay, today we're gonna beat the fucking sniper level. It's so fucking hard. You get to the fucking part where the ship beams you up, and then just waves of invisible sword elites just start coming out of the walls, and you're like, how do I get past this fucking level? It has to be possible. And it's like, it's all about those memorable set pieces and like very tightly designed levels, not a big green blob. I hate the fucking trend towards open world games, and it's even worse when they take an existing game and make it like that in an uncompelling way. Like at least at Breath of the Wild, it was like, we have ideas about what to do with an open world. Everyone else is like, you know that open world everyone's doing? We're gonna make the same one. Horizon Zero Dawn, what a fresh world. You fight robot dinosaurs. It's the same open world as every open world game. It's just the same, has the same map, same loops, same like distribution of side quests, same like progress tracker, same lore pickup collectibles. Like it's all the same fucking systems, same really shallow crafting system that doesn't have any reason to be there, same skill tree that always is there, but it's always like the most uninspired type of skill tree that AAA games have that doesn't require any thinking. And by the end of the game, you're only like marginally different from how you started, really. It's like, it's so...
Even RPGs do that.
It's so perfunctory.
The AAA RPGs.
My favorite part about Halo Infinite is that no part of the world is different. All of it looks the same. So there's no
because it's a Halo.
Yeah.
Halos don't have like the lava world.
No, because Halo 1 had a fucking
Halo
swamp.
1 had snow.
So and it had snow.
Yeah, no, I'm full of shit. Halo 1 had a swamp. It had a snow area. It had a beach.
Fuck are they?
The beach island.
Fuck are the goddamn environments?
They had the gall to promise like, here's an open world Halo, but there's no biomes to navigate between.
It cracks me up that Minecraft is a more in-depth world than fucking Halo is. How did you do that?
Realistically, a Halo probably would be one biome because why would there be a snowy part? Like what? It's a perfect ring. But yeah, like the original game had a swamp and it had the island level and it had the snow levels and so on, and so they were visibly distinct from each other.
Because it's interesting.
The Pillar of Autumn crashed on like this rocky cliff that was completely unlike the grassy forest cliff area that you started the game in.
Yeah.
It's great. It's really bad. It's really bad if the entire game is just like it's just one big grassy expanse full of fake basalt columns.
It's
'Cause
no.
now
Oh my
canonically every single Halo's every single Halo's made of these like iron basalt columns beneath the surface.
They're called. Oh my god, it's great. It's great because there's like there's like a point. There's a point where you start realizing that there's like almost more. You see more basalt columns than you do green in some areas. Where you're like, wow, this is my favorite biome, basalt columns. Like, what is this? It's just gray. It's a gray, perfectly symmetrical objects just around me all the time. Awesome. But unlike Breath of the Wild, the hookshot doesn't really have any kind of stamina requirement. So you can just look at a basalt column and go, oh, cool, a perfect flat area that you can climb up. Huh. All right, I got to the top of a mountain, and you can see the level designer like, oh, why did I build this? Like, why did I do any of this? It's like, I don't know, man, that was stupid. And I'm just like Spider-Manning away. I'm just like, I don't care about all of this level you made. It doesn't matter to me. And you can just fly to the next area you need to get to. And it's like, what? How did this improve the Halo experience? How did this make me go, oh yes, I don't want to warthog away like a plebeian. I want to just ignore the entire world and go directly to where I want to go every single time. Easy. I could just steal a Banshee and fly to the other side of the map. No problem. I don't even need to care about interacting with those ground people. I could just fly away. It's like, it's
ground people.
And it's weird. Like, it's very weird to feel like you can just fly away from Halo. You can just say like, no more. I don't want that anymore. I'm going to go somewhere else. And you can just go somewhere else. And Halo just goes like, all right, bye. See you later. And like, you can also just it gives you access to do really dumb stuff with Halo. Like you can just show up with the stuff that you definitely shouldn't have in that area, like a tank or like a what is it? A Gosshog. You can just show up in those areas and the areas are like, I don't think you're supposed to have that here. And you're like, yeah, probably not. But are you going to stop me? And it's like, no, there's no invisible walls. Like,
oh,
okay,
man.
Well,
the unique agony of playing a co-op filled franchise's story and getting into a warthog and then not having a friend that can get in the warthog with you because it's single player only still.
Dude, I'm going to tell you something.
God, that would hurt.
One of the most
I don't even know the last time I played any Halo single player at all.
One of the most irritating things about Halo Infinite single player is they didn't get the AI right. So I sat and honked my horn for a whole 2 minutes and no one would get in my Warthog. They just kept walking around it. And they're like, save a spot for me, Chief. I'm like, get the fuck in the hog. I'm trying to go. I want to go do the game. Get in it. And so like, finally, I started driving away and someone starts running. No, wait. They start running after me. I stop and they hop in. Oh, okay, I need to leave you behind. And then they give you a sense of urgency. Otherwise, you won't do it. And one of the things one of the things I think people forget about is that Halo, and not Halo 1, but maybe Halo 1. I don't think Halo 1, but I think 2 or 3. I think it's 3 specifically. They'll drive the Warthog for you. You can get in the back and a Marine will just hop in the Warthog and drive it away. Not an Infinite. They look at you like you're a fucking weirdo. They're like, what is he doing?
Because it used to be a linear game.
Yeah.
So they they had an idea where they should go.
But you can set waypoints. So just have the AI follow your waypoint. Like, what? How is this hard?
Because you want to be in the gunner seat because you're Mr. Gunman.
Yeah, because guess what? The AI can't shoot for shit. And so I tried. There's a segment at the end, like near the end, they want to do a Warthog level, you know, like the traditional Halo Warthog moment where you're driving the Warthog, and they even play the music that they play when it's Warthog music time. You know, like that end credit, that end music of final level thing. And I was going down, and I realized that 1, my AI can't shoot anybody, and 2, this is not a Warthog level because it stops you halfway through the Warthog level and says, you need to get out and invade this building. Okay, I guess I'll do that. I'll just get right out of the Warthog in the Warthog level and invade this building. And then it does like a little cutscene of you flying into a thing. And so that's the moment of you doing the cool, get away from the exploding area. And it's like, why? Why did any of this have to happen this way? It's nightmarish. It's truly baffling that someone could take something. Someone could play 5 different Halo games and go, you know what this game needs? None of this. And just do that. Just like throw it all in the trash and go, I'm going to make a brand new Halo game. And it's going to be so much better because I'm going to copy paste it directly from this other game that isn't Halo. And that's a game that people love. And that game...
You know what we need, the industry needs more of is Ubisoft.
Yeah. Well, I mean...
It really is the case that there are no more shooters, basically. Shooters used to mean something. Yeah. And these days, shooting is just the means to get to the loot, if it's a loot-based game, or to get to the clear out all the outposts kind of game, which...
I think I even would have been a little bit more receptive to the idea that you find unlockables in the game, in Halo Infinite, if you could use those unlockables in the game, which you cannot.
What?
So they are useless unlockables. They are just multiplayer cosmetics that you unlock in the game.
Oh no.
So you just like find a chest and you're like, what's this for? And it's like, you got a helmet. Oh, multiplayer. Oh.
Yeah. Okay. That's a really bad reward system for multiple reasons.
Don't worry, Keith. There's a second reward system in there for you. Every time that you save people or you free a compound or whatever it's called, they give you valor points, which you can use at any of the fob stations you reclaim. It's like the bases that you saved from in Far Cry. Any of the bases that you reclaim, you can just order whatever you want, like a warthog or a ghost or a like sniper rifle, and you can just get that instantly right there without having to go find it in the environment. Like I just can summon a plane whenever I want and just fly whenever
broken?
Whenever I want.
That's broken.
Great.
Yeah.
No, I can just summon a... I can
Both
summon
of the things you said just now were really bad. Because, a core element of designing a shooter campaign is the placement of what weapons and vehicles exist within the level as you play through it, which creates a pacing to it. And also, like, they're essentially, to some extent, controlling what kind of weapons you can have during certain sections, which coordinates the gameplay. But also the reward system you talked about with the online stuff feeds into my complaint about Zelda HD remakes, and specifically, like, especially the Twilight Princess stamp system, where it only worked for a few months and then they took the Miiverse down. Like, it was less than a year before they took the Miiverse down. Those stamps did absolutely fucking nothing. But like, it fucks with the reward system, where one of the core rewards in Zelda is to be trying to go around and try to find, like, you find rupees, or you find heart containers, or you find bottles, and like those and the big ones are the bottles and heart containers, because those are like, there's only so many of those in the game. Like, you always want that health bar to get bigger, and more bottles let you do more, and there's also way fewer bottles than any other resource in the game, and it's a permanent upgrade. So finding a cool chest that you got via exploration and puzzle solving is such a big deal. And when you open it up and it has a fucking Zelda stamp in it, it's like, oh, it's Zelda smiling. It's like, this doesn't even do anything in the game, and also no longer does anything outside of the game. But like, putting the work into explore and then just getting some random trash for multiplayer is already bad, but it's even worse when you replay the game, because when you're replaying the game now, like, huge chunks of the world are just completely pointless because they don't give you anything for that playthrough. Just like, when you replay a Zelda game that doesn't have that isn't one of the shitty remakes that made them worse in that specific way, like, you still want the bottle next playthrough. Like, but that you, if there's a fucking box that gives you a helmet for multiplayer only, well, then not only was it not helpful for the playthrough in the first place, but now you already have it. So now it's not worth getting. It's not a bottle.
Yeah. And so there's a multitude of problems that make it not a very good Halo game, which is funny because every article is about how it's the best Halo game. And I'm confused as to what Halo games people played before, because I don't think they actually played Halo. They must have played a bootleg Halo, because otherwise they're lying.
You can't pay attention. Like, you say every article is about how good it is, but I'm sure there's articles that say that it's not good.
So let me ask you, what would be the worst things you could add to a Halo game? What, like off the top of your head, what are like?
I mean, the battle pass, but here we are.
So I'm talking about single player. In the single player, think of the three worst
pass.
things. Well, yeah, I guess that's true. So think
fast
of the
travel.
Okay. Anything else?
No Halo should need fast travel.
Okay.
That's a pretty bad starting point already.
Anything else?
No ammo limitations.
Okay.
Oh god.
That's really bad.
A loadout would be pretty fucking bad.
Okay.
A loadout.
Loadouts would be bad. You already said something pretty horrifying, which is having a store that summons whatever equipment you need. It's like, no.
Yeah.
You're supposed to have levels that do things.
Well, Keith, that's it. You gotta unlock them
daily
using valor
quests,
points. Okay.
Which they added in Reach actually, which sucked then too.
Yeah.
Go play this mission for stupid arbitrary milestone reasons. Fuck you.
So Halo has fast travel. Halo Infinite does have fast travel. You can fast travel to any of the fob locations. It does have its little Valor store where if you unlock and basically you get it is like a battle pass where when you do things you get more Valor points, and those Valor points get you unlock things that you can request at the fob locations. So once you get later in the game, you can get like a sniper rifle that has 10 rounds a magazine, or you can get a rocket launcher that homes onto people, whatever. And it's free. It doesn't cost you anything. You just show up to a fob, ask for it. It gives it to you. Done. There is semi-infinite ammo. Most places you go to usually have an ammo refill container. So you can show up and say like, I've got this kind of ammo. And it goes like, oh yeah, here's a little station here. You just go and touch it. It will completely refill your magazines.
Oh, yeah.
It has upgrade mechanics. So there's a not a level system. You go and you find items in the world, and you use those items to upgrade powers. So it has like a power upgrade system.
Spartan cores, I've heard, which implies that they sent him on the mission under-equipped for some reason, when he's literally the most equipped and capable person in the entire military. That's the premise.
It's very funny. It's very funny when you get
Spartan cores that are for some reason on the Halo he hasn't been to.
Yeah. Don't worry about that. That's,
for the other Spartans that are famously all over the place. Like what?
So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of factors going in here. It makes sense within the world that it's set up, but it doesn't make sense. It does make sense in the world that it's set up. And why those Spartan cores exist? It's because they fell off a ship that blew up. So they just crash landed onto Earth or onto the ring. But as for the Spartan abilities, those are funny because those don't make sense how you're getting them. But also, it's funnier when you realize that the way that you're getting them mean that other people went in with different abilities, and all of them together, which is what you do, which is grabbing all of them, putting them into your own one great piece of armor, apparently wasn't a consideration by the military at the time. Was not to just create a super soldier, was to create
everyone had to have their one power.
Yeah, everyone had to have one power, and hope you guys don't get broken up, because otherwise you're stuck with a power that's useless, like the one that just creates a radar around you. Really useful, by the way. I've used 3 times the entire game. Really useful. Or the ability to dash. That was really useful, to be able to just dash.
Why is there I've been confused by that in multiplayer too, but at least in multiplayer you can only have one power, which is, I don't like the power system in multiplayer, but but at least then you're like, well, it's what I got, so I guess I'll use it. But like, yeah, in Halo campaign, why would you ever dash when you have a grappling hook?
It's really fucking shitty trying to. So grenades, there are 4 grenades in the game, and there are 4 abilities in the game. So imagine trying to switch between all these different abilities and power-ups, and then your guns, while in the middle of trying to do combat. So like, I'm going to do a hook shot, but I'm also going to need access to the ability to sense where invisible enemies are, because there's some invisible enemies. So I'm going to need to like hook shot up in the air, shoot down the invisible enemy thing, switch back to like a hook shot because it's the most overpowered ability in the game. But I also need to like have this type of grenade on, so I throw that, and like, oh no, it's a regular enemy, switch back to regular grenades, throw those. And it's like, there's so many fucking things going on that you feel like you're an octopus in a Spartan suit. You're like, huh, I'm just like picking 6 different things at one time and doing all things at different blah, 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 blah. Whereas like it feels more natural when you I don't know, it feels more natural when you have these constraints of like there are 2 grenade types, non-sticky, sticky. There are, well, Halo 1 didn't have abilities, but like when abilities show up, there's like, here is an ability. You can find it. It's in the world somewhere. And when you use it, it's gone. Like, okay, that makes sense. It's like a consumable. Perfect. I don't want to throw my bubble shield down to stop a grunt from shooting me. I want to wait until I fight a fucking, I don't know, like the hunters. Sure.
Yeah, and armor abilities were a complement to the campaign structure because they could place it at a specific point in the linear level you're playing through, and then it became another thing like a rocket launcher where you're like, when do I use it? Because then it's gone, but it's powerful. So is this the time? Like it creates that question in an open world where you just collect a bunch of things. Several of them just become redundant and unhelpful because of how good the other ones are. But there's just like 12 other problems.
Yep, and so having them all the time is really dumb, and it's even dumber. Because like the Spartan cores, when you get them, the only limitation here is by just how many you have. So like its cutoff point is like you can get to the max level of your hook shot without ever doing a single campaign level, but you have to go and find all the cores first, which is really dumb because max level hook shot basically is like ridiculous. You can do a lot of really amazing dumb tech with it, and having that kind of access means you can just negate a lot of problems in the game really fast, which is like basically what I did was I beeline to upgrade it because like, oh, you can just ignore a huge chunk of this game if you just have a really good hook shot, and I'll just do that because the game doesn't limit me. It's not like it says like, oh, you need to complete 3 campaigns before you can unlock this, mister. It's just like, no, do you have enough? All right, here you go. Like, what? All right, that's weird. It's just I don't know, like, yeah, the fact that you go and unlock those shards, the fact that like you do have to go capture bases, and when you capture bases then things appear. So like things don't even exist in the world until you capture the base, and then there's content in the world, which is really weird. Like finding a location going like, oh, this is pretty neat. I assume someone's supposed to be here, but there's just nothing here right now. So
if you start exploring at the beginning, you just have an emptier world full of collectibles?
Yeah. Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, there's just nothing. Until you go get another fob station. Once you reclaim another fob, then it shows you all the fun things you can do around that area. But until you do that, it's just empty, vacant land. So, like, fuck you. What are you doing? Go back and do the fob, you dumbo.
I just want levels.
And the fobs aren't levels. They're just bases. They're these very exact the same every single time levels where you show up and you're like, wow, there's like 2 or 3 brutes, and there's like 6 grunts, and maybe a Sangheili if you're feeling spicy, and grenade, shoot in the head, and I'm done. All right, took it over. Woo. Like, it's not difficult. You just kind of walk in and...
I think in regards to that not being difficult is mostly because the level design is atrocious and it's designed for open world. Because the same systems could work reasonably better if the levels were better designed.
It feels, and it's funny too, because like all of the best levels or all the fun stuff in Halo Infinite is underground. Like every time you do main campaign stuff, it's underground. So like you just go away, you just leave the overworld that they made and go do all the fun stuff below the ring, and you're like, that should have been your indication here. Because see, when you like do stuff in Breath of the Wild, the fun stuff's on the land. It's like in the world, you know, like there's dungeons, and those dungeons are in the world. But Halo Infinite levels don't feel like they're in the world because you just leave it. You go underground and it's gone forever. And like there's not a, I don't know, it's really weird. Like it's really weird to explain how barren Halo Infinite feels and how unnecessary it feels to even explore it. Like Breath of the Wild doesn't give you the opportunity to negate the whole world. You can if you do like the weird movement tech thing that's breaking the game literally. But But if you're not doing that, it's very unlikely you're going to just be able to like goodbye and just fly across all of Hyrule directly to like dungeon to dungeon and not deal with anything in between. But Infinite, you can just do that. You can just like, I just hookshotted. If it wasn't for the fact that I wanted to 100% complete, you could just hookshot all the way, just hookshot speedrun all the way to the next location. Do the thing, hookshot to the next location. Like, you don't need to waste your time hanging around and exploring the world. It's not important. It doesn't benefit you. If you want to get a weapon or something, there's like always like 16 weapon racks near every single campaign area. So just go pick the thing you want. It's right there. And you can just reload your ammo because there's ammo reload stations at every single place.
It's a thing where it's like the Amalur problem, where the world just kind of becomes just this padded space between you and your objective, so you just can skip it if you want to.
Exactly.
I spent like half of my entire Kingdoms of Amalur playthrough just sprinting past all the enemies because I'm like, I don't want to sit here and fight for half an hour before the next story beat. I'm just gonna go there. You don't matter. Bye.
That's pretty much how it felt for Halo Infinite.
Make real dungeons.
Yeah. Yep. But
because it's like in those games, I don't want to sit there and fight dudes that have nothing to do with the story. It's like, hey, meet me in this cave. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna meet that guy in the cave. Oh, the cave's full of insert enemy X that has nothing to do with the quest's text at all and will not be mentioned. Why would I want to sit here and fight all of them in all these hallways? Just run through the hallway real quick and then get to the story beat that I'm here for.
Yeah.
I don't know who that stuff's for.
Spartan Cores were a similar setup. So Spartan Cores will just be like in a place, but there's no requirement to get them. Like they're not locked or anything. So you can just hookshot to it real quick, open it up and then hookshot out and just leave the whole area and not even interact with it. And granted, one could argue like, well, then you're actively avoiding the fun. And it's like, yeah, but there's no compelling reason to sit here and fight the same enemies again. And it's like, what makes them different?
Because it used to be that every single room was its own unique encounter. That's like what a campaign is.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea that it's like, well, no, guys, I've done this. I've played Far Cry. You don't need to interact with every dumb reloadable NPC. You just have to get the thing you got to go and get the hell out. And then just move on. And the faster you do that, the faster you can do the fun stuff, like fighting an elephant. Like, no one wants to sit here and fight a grunt for 300 times. It's not really that interesting unless you're in a situation where you're like, fuck, I've got 2 shots on this really garbage gun, and one of them's got to go to a grunt. What am I going to do about the other enemies? Like those are the fun situations.
The enemies were the obstacle to your progress originally. Yeah. Now you just fight them because if you feel like it, which that seems like a bad choice.
And there's a lot of fun bugs. Halo Infinite, I don't know when you're watching this, if it's ever been fixed. I doubt it will be, but there are a lot of fun bugs in Infinite. I had a guy living in a nightmare perpetual state of looping. So what happened was I brought a Banshee to a fight, jumped out of the Banshee and started fighting everybody, and one of the enemies took the Banshee. But because the Banshee wasn't supposed to be there, and the guy that took the Banshee is legally not allowed to leave the zone because I can't finish the zone without him dying, he got stuck in a loop where every time he tried to escape with the Banshee, it would teleport him back to the beginning or back into the area that he's supposed to be stuck into, and then he would try flying away again. And so I couldn't get him out because he would keep like flying. Basically, he was flying too high for me to get him with the hook shot, but I had to kill him in order to complete the zone so I can move on, which was fun. It was a really fun bug. And there are some where like I've seen allies throw grenades on each other. They just turn, look at them, and throw grenades, and you're like, are you guys okay? Is there like a fight in the platoon? Do I need to break it up? Mommy and daddy is not like, what's going on here? It's really fun to watch how enemies interact with you going up and down cliffs. Like if you just jump off a cliff, they're like, okay. And then you can just fly back up and they're like, oh. Like it's just they don't know, like the AI doesn't know how to deal with such weird, jarring changes in player height. There's so much. Halo Infinite was definitely not meant to be open world, is what it feels like. It feels like a game that was not supposed to be open world, but somebody came drunkenly barreling into the office one day and was like, I'm going to tell you a game that people have never heard of, and it's called Far Cry. And you're like, uh-oh, this guy's probably trouble. We should not listen to him. And then someone looked at his name tag and it said, like, I don't know, it was 3 letters. And someone was like, shit, we can't say no to this guy. And that's what they did. And they let that guy nosedive it into hell. It's
and
weird.
It's such a
like,
shame.
And to thunderous applause because we're the weirdos that think it's bad.
I guess so. I guess so. I don't know. That's why I'm confused. Like, I don't know who this game's for. Like, people say it's like, I've seen people like on Twitter was like, look at this beautiful landscape. Like, bruh, it's the same 15 trees copy pasted over. Like, there's clearly a paintbrush that they're using.
We have to endlessly recalibrate our expectations to remember that God of War was voted best game of all time. Which, like, I thought the game was neat. It was fine. But, like,
it was half done as well.
It's just such a brand, though, of, like, open world, like, flat experience of just, it's not going to be that challenging most of the time.
God
like,
of War is an open world.
The God of War reboot.
Sorry. I was thinking Gears of War.
It's
I'm
open
sorry.
world in like parentheses. Yeah. It's not really.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, yeah, it's the specific kind of guided open world that they keep trying to go for. Where it's like, look at me navigating this big environment and opening it up and so on.
You mentioned Far Cry.
It did some of the stuff all right, but there's just a specific brand. Like, it's a specific formula of, like, the entire critical path will be largely unchallenging and mostly monotonous as you just grind your way through a series of scenarios where you, like, just kind of sit through conversations as the story is told at you, and, like, there's, like, such a specific formula to the point where, like, massively disparate games like God of War and The Last of Us can be bizarrely similar because of how much they're distilling this really specific formula that supposedly is what people like, and, like, they might be right, disappointingly, but it's such a homogenization that's just kind of getting disappointing, partly because it almost never, like, really interesting stuff's happening with, like, pathologic and stuff like that, with, like, telling a story through mechanics and so on. And so seeing games only take less risks and not really go anywhere is just kind of a bummer. And having the feedback be, and that's exactly what gamers want, not just as, like, that's a serviceable game that was fine, but, like, it's literally the best game to ever happen, is like, oh man, yep, that's where we are, huh? Maybe Halo, like, because, like, when I hear all these massive mistakes in the design of Halo Infinite, from my perspective at least, of what it sure sounds like, my takeaway is like, man, what another mismanaged project. But if it's massively successful and everyone loves it, then that means it was perfectly managed, and I just get to be really disappointed in what gamers want and so on.
And that's fine. I'm fine. Like, I am completely content with the idea that this is gaming now, is that every game is just this faux open world experience where they just kind of, like, politely, condescendingly give you something to do every couple of minutes, and you have, like, this childish ADD brain where you can't, like, have a fun experience anymore. You have to, like, new shiny thing every 30 seconds. But the idea that it's the best of all time is, like, there are, like, what you find good is very like is person by person, but what is good is not up for debate. Like, Far Cry is not a good game. You can think it's good, you can find it to be good, but it is not on its own as a piece.
The original one
as a
is,
piece of media, as a video game.
That's
the original 2 even.
Far Cry 4, Far Cry 5. Neither of those are good
5
games.
is miserable.
Far Cry 5 is a dredge to get through. And, like, there are people who love it. I know there are people who love it because they made a fucking 6. But, like,
I won't try to claim, like, the objective quality argument or anything, but definitely with, like, Far Cry 5, there was such a bizarre misunderstanding of the concept of pacing and intensity. Because, like, I played through that game in multiplayer, and I beat all the missions and all that, and, like, it was astonishing how it just didn't matter if you were doing an important mission or not. Just every minute of the game, it'll just spawn either wildlife or random enemies or both to just attack you. and that just keeps happening, like just right out of just out of your sight, as if it's Elizabeth from BioShock Infinite. Enemies will just continually spawn and attack you as if you have a wanted level in GTA, and it just never went away the entire playthrough, and that is just exhausting.
It is.
Like
That's
that
the same thing
is
with
a fundamental
with Ghost Recon
misunderstanding
Breaking
of how you pace a game. Like it's like our open world can't be boring if we literally always attack the player every second. It's like, oh, Jesus Christ, that's not how any of those words work, sir. How did we get there?
That's
On a more cynical perspective, there's a certain level of monotony to that sort of game design that allows for a monetizable game design, like anything based on a shop where you buy custom skins and whatnot. It's the concept of it's basically why Diablo 2 works so well as it's a mostly monotonous game where you click things, but you get the delight and surprise of every once in a while you get a new item. And obviously there's strategy involved in finding the best builds and having
there was a deep cynicism in how one of the ways they made Diablo 3 more popular when it wasn't being well received is they just made legendaries more common.
Yeah.
You get like I remember playing it with Andrew and other people like in local multiplayer, and I'll die on the hill that playing it on a shared screen on a console is so much more fun than playing it online multiplayer, because it has that gauntlet feel. It's so nice. But yeah, like that fucking golden beam of a legendary happening. It happens like every 15 minutes. It's just like another legendary all the time. It's like, that's not what words mean, sir. You can't just that's them just hitting the 11 button over and over again. Just and like fucking feel it. It's like, I'm not gonna feel it the 10th time. Jesus.
I have a very specific opinion, or not opinion, but like I'm sort of immune to that sort of thing, and I don't know why, but I know for a fact that I am, because I played the vast majority of my Diablo 3 hours were while the real money auction house was still up, and while they didn't have that patch that made the first patch anyway that made legendaries more common. So my impression of I did play after, but the vast majority of my time was before that, and Diablo 3 did not become a better game. I think it, in fact, in some ways became worse with the changes that they made.
Well, because they're literally just manipulating the reward system to be like, hit the reward button more often. That'll trick people into liking the game more.
Though. The reward doesn't change the game. You're just having
but it distracts you. It distracts you from
the distracts you. Yeah,
because that is the core appeal to an extent, is it's a loot grinder. So there's like, loot?
This is why Destiny is.
I realized that I'd grown out of Diablo real hard when Diablo 3 came out, and I beat it once on normal and then never touched it again.
Yep. I played a lot of Diablo 3, and there's a lot of fun in Diablo 3. I really like the abilities. I really like some of the non-campaign related stuff. Like, I really like the Nephilim trials, which is not about loot at all. It's just about murdering as many people as you can in time limits and constraints, which means you have to build like the best build, and you need the best gear. And
you don't need the best gear though, because the difficulty is customizable.
Well, it is, but if you're trying to get to the highest tiers of the Nephilim realm, you have smaller time limits and bigger health bars.
But
which
that
means
doesn't meaningfully affect
Diablo
your
3
gameplay.
Terrifyingly realized that they could just make the game forever by just making the numbers scale forever, which means you'll hypothetically play forever.
Well, but
I felt like weirdly gross when I launched. I saw a random friend streaming it on Facebook, and they were just hitting things for like literally millions of damage, and I'm like, why are you still playing? What are you getting out of this? You are just looping the same content forever, and the numbers get a bit bigger forever. And I'm like, what? Why are you still playing this?
Blizzard is really good.
I genuinely don't know.
It isn't though. They're not good about that.
Yeah, they are. They did it with
Diablo 2 is better.
Fucking Diablo.
Based on the results, they are.
Diablo 2 is a better game in that regard than Diablo 3. If they had made Diablo 2
is a better game than Diablo 3, but Diablo 3 is a more successful game at this point than Diablo 2.
I understand that. What I'm saying is,
like, because the thing is that the part that makes you keep playing when the numbers are stupid, That's not about game quality. That's about how effective the manipulation is. And so it's incorrect to say they're not good at it. They're apparently fucking incredible at it.
What I'm saying is Diablo 2 does it better. That aspect as well.
Because it would make more money then.
Yeah.
Well, they don't
also,
sell.
It
was a successful game, but Diablo 3 is like disgustingly successful.
But that's because of the apparatus around it.
Which means they did better this time at hooking people forever.
It's the apparatus. It isn't the game itself that does it.
Well, no, because Diablo.
What does apparatus mean to you?
The Diablo
marketing
2
and
the
sorry.
The remake of Diablo 2
what I'm saying
didn't
is
do it.
The remake. Yeah. Okay. What I'm saying is that the mechanics that Diablo 2 has are better at keeping the players hooked for the numbers. Just playing the same things over and over again than the mechanics that Diablo 3 has. And the reason why I think that is because largely the mechanics of Diablo 3 are transparent. They're very blatantly just about seeing the numbers rise. So it's very easy to see through. But also they're not as deep, and they allow. It's just so fast to get a character up to speed. Like if you want to make a character, just a few hours of gameplay, you have a max level character. Just spinning out, doing the same exact moves and all the things that a super high level character gets to do. And that didn't used to be the case when Diablo 3 came out. And it certainly is not the case in Diablo 2. So what I'm saying is the hooking the players is a lot more efficient and it works better, I think, in Diablo 2 than it does in Diablo 3. So what I'm saying is if they wanted that kind of game, and they clearly do, all they had to do really is just reuse the same mechanisms of Diablo 2. Obviously, they need to.
Now
come
Diablo
up with
2 is out again.
Yeah, but
I think
they would have
been
to
a
come
train
up.
wreck in its own right.
Yeah. But they would have to come up with a new story, and it's not just Diablo 2 again. It's just it's Diablo 3, but the same as Diablo 2. It is what I'm saying. Like, I'm not saying that I would have wanted that. Although I would have wanted that.
I mean, they wouldn't have wanted that because the game they made was disgustingly successful.
But I think they would have been more successful if they had just stuck to
Wasn't
their
it at
guns.
one point the top selling like PC game of all time?
Yeah.
What fucking like Icarus level are you going for, man?
I'm looking at it objectively. I'm looking at it. It's my opinion that the mechanisms that Diablo 3 has are not as good as what they do. They're not as good as
I realized
at
some
Diablo
point
2
I
has.
was just fundamentally not playing the game for the same reasons. Because like even when I look back at my Diablo 2 time, I was literally just like I would only hit like level like 75 over and over again.
Yeah,
I would just
I
rush through bail runs or whatever because I just wanted to try another spec again and again, and I just kept making more and more alts to be like, can I make this work? And that was just the entire end goal. Then it's like get into the fucking economy of what runes are worth and SOJs, and I'm like, I fucking hate this. I just want to try. I just want to keep starting the skill tree over again and see if it works.
But now Diablo 3 just allows you to respect. Like it takes away all of that incentive away from you, Keith. Personally, Diablo 3 came in and it just allows you to respect your character, and that's it. And when it came out, it even
I don't think
had
I don't think I would ever do that again.
Yeah, for sure. But like,
it's such a weird waste of time that you do when you don't have enough video games, and now there's infinite video games.
I think that's the thing too, though, is I feel like a lot of like Halo Infinite or God of War, they pan themselves as being something you're gonna commit the next like 2 months of your life to, and the hope is that you buy these games and you can get that level of value.
Lifestyle games.
Yeah, they're lifestyle games, and lifestyle games are fine on a scale, on like a small scale, when you say like, okay, there's like a couple of these things, but like every AAA company is making a lifestyle game, and at some point my question is, how many lives do I have? Because not that many, and I'm not going to spend my entire life playing Halo Infinite waiting for my lifetime game to become like filled out. Like God of War, like I basically did 99% completion of God of War. Because the only thing I didn't do was you have to go back to one of those shitty fucking worlds and do some kind of like Binding of Isaac run to get this legendary armor.
Place was so bad.
I was like, what the fuck am I even here for? After like failing it twice, I was like, I'm done with this, dude. I already beat the hardest level Valkyrie. I don't need to be here. What the fuck is the point of this? And I just left, and that's it. I never 100% completed it. I didn't do my lifetime duty. to God of War, but I did
And
everything
that's
else.
the right call.
And like,
honestly,
but like, why?
Like every time you play a
Why?
Yakuza game, if you make it to the super secret ultimate final boss that you get only when you've completed all of the content, you've failed. Like, because that means something along the way at some point you played something you hated to do that part, and that was a mistake. I've beaten Amon twice. Once in Judgment, I think, and once in Kiwami 2. And both times it was I had to get through at least one or two arcs of stuff that was like not worth playing in order to finish the completionism, and it's not worth it.
You've 100%ed a Yakuza game?
Yeah, twice.
Wow, Jesus, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Kiwami 2 and Judgment. I completed both of them and I beat their respective Amons. It's not worth it. Do not unlock Amon. In Judgment's case, it's because Judgment has made a really bad choice that I hated, which is that it had a stupid fame system where you had to grind up your reputation or whatever, and all of the good quests, including the like final ones too, like all of the good side quests were locked behind milestones of getting through the system, which meant you had to be like basically completing the game's other bullshit just to do the good part of Yakuza, which is completing the side quests. Because those are all fun little scenarios to play through, and you want to see what's going to happen in the next one, and like that's the appeal of the side content, and everything else should be purely optional for people to decide, yeah, I want to do a cabaret for 12 hours. You don't, but some people will think they want to. And having all of that stuff rolled into like do all of these systems in order to unlock the story missions is like no. Do not hide the good stuff behind the bad stuff. Just leave it there for people that really do want to play 12 hours of mahjong, but I can just ignore mahjong if I want to. That's the correct way to do your open world.
You can't ignore mahjong, Keith.
Judgment was a big misstep in that way.
You can't ignore mahjong because you don't know how to play it.
I was so tired of that game by the time I finished it.
Yeah,
that's not what Yakuza is supposed to be like.
But
anyway, we gotta wrap up. We're super over time.
Got
a good Halo rant in. Clap.
Clap.
Yay.
Join us next time for when we complain about some other game.
Yeah.
We've never
funny. I had an email open, but then I never ever read it.
Oh no.
Marky doesn't read. Don't forget.
The momentum, it just goes. It just this podcast just goes, and you're like, oh fuck, I can't hold on, and then it's over. See you guys next week.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.